I believe in Santa, I believe in biting.
80 years old, Bubba goes there all 30 years. He said, Mrs. Cohen, well, I'm going to give you 6.
What?
He says, Mrs. Cohen, I know you say, what did you say something?
Jerry, let me I went to Brian. I asked Brian to authorize the $20,000 from the shade tree money for the inventory. And
His response was?
no, I'm waiting for the answer. He was out for surgery. So shade tree has no authority
Okay.
over that money. That's all, only the manager has authority on that money.
I'm good.
So I'm ahead of the curve on that one.
Geezer, I'm doing good.
Let's look for shit. Doesn't exist. That's a shame. Okay.
I got some comments on the ordinance. I'm going to hand it to you after.
Okay.
Ready, Paul? I'd like to call the May 16th, 2019 Township of Howell Planning Board to order. Eileen, would you please read the opening statement?
I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Planning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 4th, 2019, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Star Ledger and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 4th, 2019, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 4th, 2019, said notice was posted in the office of the Planning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility has been designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on your right at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Boyle has been excused. Mr. Dorado has been excused. Mr. Husser.
Here.
Chief Kudrick. Here. Mr. Nicastro's been excused. Mr. Schneider.
Here.
Mr. Tannenhouse has been excused. Mr. Seaman.
Here.
Mr. Everett has been excused. Deputy Mayor O'Donnell
Here.
and Chairman Nash.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you. I would like to ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and also to remain standing for a moment of silence for our first responders and our troops both home and abroad. Chief?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Eileen, other than the 3 items that you have listed, the ordinances under correspondence, do we have any other correspondence?
No other correspondence.
Okay. Oh,
Okay.
let the record show Mr. Nicastro just arrived. So we're going to go to the ordinances, and we need to get a motion that these ordinances are consistent with the master plan.
Substantially consistent.
Substantially, thank you. So we first will go with ordinance number O-19-28. It's land use, chapter 188, article 10, zone map.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
This ordinance basically more clearly codifies what has always been the policy here in Howell, as well as every other municipality, which is that any use not specified as a permitted use in the ordinance is to be deemed a prohibited use. That's generally how all ordinances are interpreted. This just more clearly states that.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Do I have a motion from
I
the
make
board?
a motion that ordinance 01928, land use, chapter 188, article 10 of the zone match is consistent with the master plan.
Second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Mr. Castro?
Thank you. Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes,
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Chairman Nash.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, the next one is ordinance number 019-29, and it's land use, chapter 188, article 14, residential design standards. I have a couple of comments on this, all right, since I do this stuff. On section A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines down, where the line reads, any concrete, then a period, where sidewalks abut the curb. We should annotate that in residential zones.
Well, I have a question about that, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir?
The sidewalks in residential zones, and I would defer to our professionals, I mean, isn't that generally those requirements are covered by the RSIS?
The RSIS only specifies the sidewalk width of 4 foot, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong?
If I may, I'm Greg Valesi, by the way, I'm pinch hitting for more presenters for doing this graduation. The RSIS provides details for sidewalk, but sometimes the sidewalk can abut the curb. It doesn't speak specifically to that.
Right. And that's why I wanted to annotate that the 6-foot width is primarily to allow for the 2-foot overhang of the car bumper and still maintain a 4-foot wide clear width, which is what the RSIS requires as a minimum. And then the other, at the end of that sentence where sidewalks abut the curb, if we make that reference in residential zones, we should also indicate that in commercial zones, that it should be 10-foot wide. Above, it requires an 8-foot wide for in front of commercial areas, and this would give us the additional 2 feet for the overhang.
11.8 was really designed for the non-residential community design standards, so that would apply
yes.
for the next.
Yes,
And
okay.
this is an opportunity for us to, although we are pretty active in trying to put sidewalks in, should the opportunity come where we don't have a sidewalk or it's deemed that at this time it's not appropriate, then these will go into a specific fund, which other communities have.
Yeah, that's the next one.
Yeah, so at such
Yeah.
time that, well, that's the setup, yeah.
Yeah.
At such time that we can then go ahead and be in a position to fund it, should applications not have it previously.
Understood. But I'm just addressing the context of it right now. And you have a very good point. I didn't pay attention that it was residential. On the next page, on item C, we think that said amount to be determined by the township engineer is a little bit vague. I would recommend that we say, and just add the language to the end of the sentence, by the township engineer using the NJDOT bid price database as a basis for cost. I'll give this to you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay.
So with those amendments, does anyone have any comments? Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion that they're substantial to the master plan and that
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell will bring those notes to, I'm sure, the administration.
Thank you.
Happy to do so.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, the last one is Land Use Chapter 188, Article 25, Non-Residential Community Design Standards, Ordinance Number O-19-30. And I have essentially the same exact comments because it's the same exact language. So both on G sub 1 and on 4 on the second page. And I will give that to you also.
Thank you.
Board have any comments? Can I have a motion, please?
So moved. That is substantial to the master plan.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we will move on to memorialization of resolutions. I have case number SP 1013, SL Homes, Inc. It's a resolution granting preliminary site plan. Eligible voters, Mr. Kuza, Chief Kundrick, Mr. Nacastro, Mr. Seaman, Deputy Mayor O'Donnell, and myself. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Have Chief seconded.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries. Resolutions memorialized.
Mr.
Thank
Chair,
you.
the second one, Cornerstone, will be on for the next meeting.
Very good. Okay, so we'll go into the review of submission waivers. We have case number SP 1061, New Jersey American Water Company, Inc. It's a conditional use / minor site plan / bulk variance. Application of New Jersey American Water Company, Inc. as applicants and owners seeking conditional use approval and minor site plan with ancillary bulk variance approval for improvements to a public utility water well station to include the construction of a 192-square-foot building addition to contain chemical feed and other equipment, in addition to a new public utility well with associated piping, electrical equipment, landscaping, and other improvements on the premises known as Block 65, Lot 34, 42 Spruce Road. Counselor.
Mr. Chairman, Neil O'Brien from the law firm of Archer and Griner for the applicant, New Jersey American Water Company. Very minor application, as you've stated, just a building addition with some associated water treatment equipment and utility facilities. We are asking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 waivers from your checklist this evening, and if you'd like, I'll run through them and give
Counsel.
you our rationale.
Typically, what we do is we just kind of toss it over to our engineer to see if our engineer has any objection to any of them, and that kind of streamlines the process a
Sounds
little.
good, Counsel.
Okay.
And the answer is I don't. I think these, based on the nature of the application, I would be supportive of the waivers being granted. If in the course of hearing the application, any of them determined to be necessary, it could be required at that time. So I would be in favor of the board granting the waiver.
Okay. Does the board have any questions? Can I have a motion granting then the conditional, Ron, I don't have to open these two.
A motion to grant the requested submission waivers.
I don't know.
Yes, so
No
move to, you don't need public. So move to grant these submission waivers for SP 1061.
Second.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Chief Kudrick?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
And Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next one we're going to do is case number SD 2930-A2/SP-4914-A2, Boulder Ridge 2 at Howell. It's an extension of time. It's application of Boulder Ridge 2 at Howell LLC as applicant and owner seeking a one-year extension of time on their approval per resolution dated January 19th, 2017, to construct 155 residential lots, 4 open space lots, and 1 clubhouse recreation lot on premises known as Block 183, lots 109.01, 109.02, 110, 111, 112. It's 1521 State Route 33. They're also seeking to amend Condition 6 of the 2017 approval.
Mr.
Counsel.
Chairman, John Junko on behalf of Giordano, Howell, and Cecil on behalf of the Boulder Ridge. The extension request is very simple in the sense that we have gone through the review process. We're in the final stages of the plans being perfected, and there was a change in the sewer design requested by the township. Our clients and engineers agreed with that, but that was about a 7-8 month process from start to finish. It also involved revising the plans and going back to the Manasquan Regional Authority. That has since been done. The plans have been approved, and as I understand it, the TWA has left the building, and the process is going through at Manasquan River and to the DEP. We have a few more months before our time expires. We do expect to be able to complete all that work within the next 12 months, and of course, to have the closing, and then the project would begin construction.
Okay? What about your request to amend Condition 6?
Well, that condition is apparently some kind of confusion and then some mistakes. During the process of the application, our westerly property owner is the Angle Inn. And there were several issues going on at that point with the Angle Inn that the township recognized our application could correct. First was they have some sewer issues there. This project creates a pump station on the property, and as part of the plan and our process, we were asked, and our clients agreed, to expand the pump station to be able to take the capacity from the Angle Inn, and we went further and delivered a stub line to their property line. So when they are ready to connect internally, and our project is built, they will be able to connect into that system, alleviate the sewer issue. The second part of that condition is that along that boundary line, there were 11 or 12 encroachments, tanks, trailers, and so forth. And during the discussion back and forth that would be in the buffer, and the question was, what would we do? We'd have to compel Angle Inn to remove those. One of the board members, who I note is not on the board today, said, why don't you just give them 10 feet? So we went back and forth on this idea and came back and said, that was really a very good idea after we were able to analyze it. Number one, Angle Inn doesn't have to move. Number two, there's no development will be permitted there because that's their setback anyway. It does affect 3 of the lots, which are within 40 feet rather than the 50 feet. But we then prepared the plans. The resolution and the plans were approved. And the plans came to the point where we're waiting for the sewer, we're waiting to get signature, and the issue was raised that there's no record of variance being granted for that buffer incursion. So what we ask is to, and I have Mark Zelina, who was our project engineer, and you may recall, I think you were at the hearing, and I think Mr. Nicastro was, but I'm not sure any of the other members were at that hearing, but that was the direct request. Then we came back the next month, or the next time you scheduled this, whenever that might have been, and Mr. Zelina testified about that, and we put that on the record about the encroachment, that this is how we're going to solve it, and set the buffer at 40 feet.
and dedicate and give that 10 land to Angle Inn, 10 feet to the Angle Inn. We have already prepared the plans, I've prepared deeds, we've sent the deeds for review, and that's when it came back questioning that we have the variance. I've already discussed this with the Angle Inn owners, anticipating that they, and they were very pleased with that concept. They didn't want to have to try and move everything anyway. It would have been quite a mess for them. So if the board recalls, I would like to clarify that condition, that that did include that approval, and if not, I have Mr. Zelina here tonight, and he can offer testimony about it, and we can refresh the board on the basis to grant that variance.
Well, there's a couple other issues, though. I was just going through the procedure, or the procedural history a little bit. So just to be more specific, though, I thought that this came about because there was an issue as to whether there was a subdivision for that 10 feet, or whether there was an easement conferring rights for the 10 feet. Is
Well,
that?
that was basically the debate.
Okay,
and-
well, just hear me out, though.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the resolution says provide an easement. Mr. Junko and his clients talked about a subdivision also. Both were discussed at the hearing, but just on a more fundamental level, in order to effectuate a subdivision, and this may be why the easement was in the document, the Angle Inn property would have had to have been part of that application, and it would have required notice 200 feet from the Angle Inn property as well. I don't think that happened. I mean, you certainly or the applicant certainly responded to the request of the board, and I think the resolution acknowledged the fact that Angle Inn wasn't actually part of the application, but through an easement, you could accomplish that. But to do a subdivision, you would have had to have made the Angle Inn property part of the application and notice from 200 feet, which that I don't think happened. So I don't think there's any dispute as to the, why the plan looks the way it does, or the merits of why it does. But I think just on that issue of, the notice needed to include that lot and 200 feet from both the subject lot and the Angle Inn lot, I think you can accomplish that just by amending the application and, doing that notice, but.
Well, I did notice for tonight, but I did not notice the Angle Inn property.
Right, well, you can't change.
But I didn't go 200 feet
Right,
beyond.
right. So I think that is just a prerequisite for,
I recognize that, and I would suggest, we'll certainly do that if necessary, but could we consider that this was really during the application process and it was a request?
well, I think, everything you said can be considered. I'm just saying that in order for us to properly consider it at the hearing, that the Angle Inn lot has to actually become part of the application and the notice. I don't dispute factually anything that you said, or the history of what went on, or why the applicant did what it did, but I think the reason, I was trying to recollect in my cluttered head how it happened after all this time, and I think that was one of the reasons that language wound up in the resolution, was so that you guys could move forward without having to provide that notice at that time. So I don't think there was any objection to the board to doing it the way you're suggesting, but it's just the MLUL has some requirements on how to do it.
Well, I certainly don't want to avoid any requirements, and unfortunately, this really only came to pass it gave us enough time to notice, but I missed that issue until this moment. So I would request the board to permit us to renotice and come back, but it should be a relatively simple issue.
We don't have to permit you. I mean, you have that statutory right, and we can still act on your request for the extension.
Again, we have time, if you'd like to, if you would give me an opportunity and schedule it.
It's up to you. I mean, from a legal person.
We'll get the consent and get all those things filed and come back.
So you want to do it all at once, or do you want the extension of time tonight?
I think we can do it all at once. I mean, I don't want to burden the board with extra resolutions. We can, hopefully, we'll, be
So it's up to,
satisfied.
there's no burden. It's up to you. I mean, it's whatever the applicant would prefer to do. Don't, consider what it is that.
just a simple question. I will need at least 14 days to get the notice and the consent, of course. So when would we be able to come back? And if you tell me like September, I'll say, yes, give me the extension now. But if we're saying, July, I can certainly, or June, we can accommodate.
We have some interesting applications that are coming up in the near future.
Yeah, we're not going to put them on for June 6th.
No, no. June 20th, we have the master plan, and we may have the KHUV application. That's probably a good date, June 20th.
You want to put them on before the master plan?
Yeah, yeah.
I don't let, even if we go through full testimony, it shouldn't take very long. There's not a lot to it.
Fine, so we'll put you on the agenda for June.
June 20th?
June
We'll
20th.
renotice and I'll get consent.
All right, I am just curious, all right, in listening to this conversation back and forth as to why you don't want to have the easement or grant the angle in the easement as opposed to doing the subdivision.
That's an excellent question. However, the notice issues kind of preclude us
Oh, okay.
from discussing it tonight.
Thank you. All right.
A
We'll hold
very
it to the-
reasonable answer that you'll understand.
Fine. All right, so Ron, you want to?
We can't, it's going to be renoticed, so we don't need to
renoticed,
carry it.
okay.
Yeah.
We'll be back on the 20th, June 20th?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next application is case number SD 2946 X2, Willett Hawk Point, formerly Oak Glen Estates. It's an extension of time. It's application of Janice and Perry Willett as applicants and owners seeking an extension of time on final major subdivision approval granted on September 17th, 2015, to subdivide the property for the construction of 27 single-family homes with parking and associated site improvements on premises known as Block 35.87, lots 86 through 89, 168 Oak Glen Road. The applicant previously received a one-year extension of time as memorialized in resolution dated 12/21/2017.
Chairman, I'm going to be recusing myself from next year.
Okay,
I have to do the same on this application.
okay. Are you coming back for Gil?
I am?
Yes. All right. Rob, you're gone for the night?
No.
You're coming back?
This should be short, correct?
Yes, this should be short,
Do
yes.
I need to leave for this?
Yes.
And Rob is done. Good evening.
He's coming back.
Somebody can come back and get me? Somebody coming back?
No.
You never know.
We'll call dispatch.
Good
Mr.
evening,
Alfieri.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, Salvatore Alfieri on behalf of the applicant. We, as the board chair indicated, we received a one-year extension in 17, which would have expired in the fall of 18. The reason we haven't perfected the subdivision approval was that the DEP approval had expired and it's about to be renewed. We have met with Tom Savino now twice in the past month and a half, and we also met with Jim Herman about a week and a half ago to finalize the plans, the resolution compliance plans. We have an issue Jim Herman wanted us to deal with. There's a comment in Bill Nunziato letter, that's how long ago it was, where it said they wanted us to improve along the township property, which is adjacent to ours. They wanted us to improve the road. So we met with Jim Herman and Tom Savino about a week and a half ago. Jim was going out there to look at the road to give us the specs that he wanted, the road improvements done. We agreed to do that. We're just waiting for him to get back to us. So we expect, the approval was September, so we don't think we're going to get it perfected by September of this year. That's why we've asked for a 2-year extension instead of the one. Tom Savino indicates he's retiring at the end of this year, and we're doing our best to get this done before he retires. Otherwise, we have to start over with someone else. So we're all working towards concluding these and perfecting by year end.
Mr. Alfieri, you said a 2-year extension. You're including the 1 year that's been previously granted?
No, it would be 1 year to get us to this fall. The second year would be getting us to this fall, and then the third year, which will be our last, would get us to next fall if God forbid, we need that much time, but we're hoping we don't.
All right.
The MLUL permits 3 one-year extensions, so essentially they're asking for 2 one-year extensions. due to the fact that they've been diligently pursuing their outside agency approvals. And Mr. Alfieri, there's been no zone change or anything for the
No
subject
zone
property.
changes, no. And the second one-year extension that we're asking for, which is the first of the two tonight, is about to expire in a few months. That's why we're asking for the second one now, rather than have to come back in September and ask for the third.
So he is asking for a 2-year extension.
2 one-year extensions, sort of
Yes.
under the MLUL, yes.
Yeah. And that would be then the 3 one-year extensions.
That's correct, yeah,
That's
So
correct.
we
We
grant
understand.
this, and there's no more after these.
We understand.
that's correct.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
No.
You
The
gotta get
chairman will
better.
make a motion to approve the 2-year extension.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Husser?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes,
Mr. Seaman?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Chairman Nash?
Yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Okay. So we will move on now to case number SP 1006, Gill Petroleum, Inc. It's conditional use, preliminary and and final major site plan.
Let me go get Andy.
Yeah, please.
Oh, yeah.
Just before you start, Mr. Alfieri, we're going to get the chief back.
I don't control it, DPW does, so.
It's automatic controls. I'm sorry, Ms. Dixell. I can control certain things, but not the AC. Okay, so we're here for case number SP 1006, Gill Petroleum, Inc. The record should show that the Chief Kundrick has returned. Mr. Nicastro is not going to be here for this application. Application of Gill Petroleum, Inc. as applicant and owner seeking conditional use and preliminary and final major site plan approval to remove all existing site improvements, including the existing access drives, and construct a 3,000 square foot convenience store with gasoline fuel dispensing service consisting of 6 pump islands and an attendant kiosk beneath a 62-foot by 62-foot canopy. 3 new 15,000-gallon underground fuel storage tanks for regular, premium, and diesel fuel are also proposed, along with a right-in only drive and a right-out only drive along Route 9, as well as an apparent right-in, left-out driveway extending along Wyckoff Mills Road, parking for 17 vehicles, a loading area, a refuse enclosure, infiltration basin, landscaping, lighting, and signage on premises known as Block 140, lots 1, 2, 3, and 4.01, 695 U.S. Highway 9 North and Wyckoff Mill Road. After some testimony was placed on the record on January 17th, 2019, this application was carried to February 21st, 2019, with no further notice. On February 21st, 2019, it was carried to March 21st, 2019, with no further notice. And on March 21st, 2019, this application was carried to April 18th, 2019, with no further notice. On April 18th, 2019, this application was rescheduled to May 16th, 2019. Eligible voters on this will be Mr. Kundrick, Mr. Kuzer, Chief Kundrick, Mr. Schneider, Mr. Seaman, and myself. Mr. Alfieri.
And Mr. Chair, just to further clarify the procedural history, when you canceled your April meeting, I don't think you convened the meeting, so we renotice for tonight and republish for tonight.
Correct, and that,
Okay.
the proof of service was fine.
Thank you. And since the January hearing...
Mr. Alfieri, let me just, for the record, Mr. Cucchiaro,
Yes,
have you reviewed the notice?
I have not. I have not reviewed the content of the notice. But if you just, once Mr. Alfieri enters his appearance, I think we would ask if there are other counsel and if anyone has objections to the notice. But Mr. Alfieri, I assume the notice was the same as the original notice?
Yes, the only thing changed was the date.
Yeah, so I did review the initial notice, which was, which complied with all legal requirements.
Okay.
And for the record, Salvatore Alfieri, Cleary, Giacobbe, Alfieri, and Jacobs, on behalf of the applicant, there is counsel present for one of the objectors.
So, Mr. Chair, at this time, I think it'd be appropriate, if there are any other counsel here tonight, if you can come up, enter your appearance, and list the clients that you're representing. Actually, I don't think I see Mr. Gazarovski.
I thought I saw him earlier.
He was here earlier.
He's probably in the hallway. Want me to get him?
Yeah, yeah.
I would have just moved on without it.
He's got it.
Okay. Mr. Gazarovski, if you could just enter your appearance and list your clients. I think he's just going to get his notes.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Ron Gazarovski. I'm an attorney with offices in Red Bank, New Jersey. In this particular matter, I represent an entity known as SAP American Choice LLC. They are the owners of a gas station also located.
Mr. Gazarovski, talking to the mic.
You could raise it up.
Did you pick up everything or no? Okay. Good evening. My name is Ron Gazarovski. I'm an attorney with offices in Red Bank, New Jersey. I represent an interested party in this matter known as SAP American Choice LLC. They are business owners and have an interest in property operating a gas station also on Route 9 in Township of Howell.
Mr. Gazarovski, do you have any objection to the board's jurisdiction tonight?
No.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Alfieri.
Thank you. Last meeting, we presented the LSRP testimony, we presented the engineer and the architect's testimony, and we stopped at that point. The board had many comments, and we have, since the last hearing, submitted a revised preliminary and final site plan from our engineer. We submitted a traffic impact analysis. We submitted the RAR and RIR, which are voluminous. Somebody, I'm sure, has read it, but at the board's request. And we submitted stormwater drainage calculations. Our intention tonight is to start with the applicant as a witness. We are then going to bring up the engineer to discuss the plan changes that were made since the last hearing, and then the architect to do the same. We also have a traffic engineer, and we have a planner ultimately. So we'll go as far as we can. And our first witness is Bikram Gill.
Okay, sir, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give this board is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state and spell your last name for the record, or both your first and last name.
Bikram, B-I-K-R-A-M, and last name is Gill, G-I-L-L.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Gill, you are a principal of Gill Petroleum, Inc.,
Yes, sir.
and you have owned the property for how long, this property?
I will say over 5 years.
And there was a point that we had a zoning board application pending, and the zoning board had suggested that you purchase property from the state of New Jersey to expand the property, and you did that several years ago, is that correct?
Exactly, yeah. We went to state of New Jersey. It took us 2 years to go through the process, but we were able to buy the adjoining property.
Has the property been vacant and non-operational during the term of your ownership?
Yes.
And can you tell the board a little bit about your business and you need that for him? Your company, Gill Petroleum, owns multiple gas stations throughout the state, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
How many gas stations in New Jersey?
We operate close to 70 gas stations.
And are they different franchises and different brands?
Yeah, all of the major brands like Exxon, Mobil, BP, Sunoco, 76, Phillips 66.
This design on this property, as you know, it's somewhat of a triangular shaped property, and it's fronted on 3 sides by a road. Do you have other gas stations that are laid out in a similar fashion as this, on similar sized properties?
Yes, we have a lot of stations like that, and a typical gas station in New Jersey looks exactly like that. And we have some stations with exact same configuration, but the property is smaller.
And what is the proposed hours of operation for this location if it were approved?
24 hours.
And then and I assume there'll be shifts then with the employees?
Yeah, there will be 3 shifts.
And during your peak times, actually, strike that, when would be the peak time of operation for a business such as this in this location?
It will be from 6 a.m. to, I will say, 7 p.m.
And at the maximum operation intensity, how many employees would you have on site?
4 employees.
And what would their roles be or functions be?
We will have 2 gas attendants outside pumping gas and 2 inside store cashiers.
Can you tell the board a little bit about the convenience store component? Is it like a Wawa or other type of convenience stores that some of the board members might be familiar with in terms of intensity and size and scope of products?
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing like a Wawa. I will think that a typical Wawa, have few thousand customers each day. On a busy time, they might have 300 customers an hour. A station like this, in the busiest hour, we'll have 25 customers. In slow times, we are lucky if we get 10 to 15 customers an hour. So on a typical day, in 24 hours, we get somewhere around 300 customers.
You are proposing a diesel fuel pump somewhere on the site. Is it one pump?
It's one pump,
And
yeah.
can you describe for the board how that diesel fuel pump works as opposed to the normal gas pumps?
So diesel pump is located on the gas island. So at a time, this is not one of those high-speed pumps where big trailers or trucks can fill up. This is typically for your diesel cars and vans. And so the way diesel pump is located, it could be a diesel vehicle or a car vehicle. Only one of them can fill up.
Would you agree as a condition of approval to prohibit large wheelbase vehicles from using the diesel pump?
Yes. Yeah, typically, I mean, these pumps pump, maybe 8 gallons a minute, and the truckers are looking for pumps which are pumping about 100 gallons a minute, 10 times faster. So they don't want to sit here for half an hour filling up their truck.
Mr. Gill, just 2 questions. One, for purposes of the resolution, is this what is kind of commonly referred to as low-flow diesel pumps?
Yes.
Okay, and secondly, when we're talking about prohibiting large wheel-based vehicles, can we quantify, what size and up would be prohibited? Like a WB what?
I mean, I will, we'll have vans and small box trucks and diesel vehicles. I mean, diesel cars, I should say.
So I guess just maybe for our own engineer, Greg, so what are they talking about, like a WB50 or?
When he
The
gets
truck
done here.
circulation plans show that the largest wheelbase vehicle that can enter the site is a WB50. So I'm assuming that that would be the vehicle that would basically fill the tanks.
Yeah, tanker truck.
So WB50 is what they picked.
Yeah, but we don't want the large wheelbase trucks, so can I recommend,
I'm just saying,
can we put a weight on the truck that would be no trucks over 8,000
Well,
pounds,
I
something?
think we're talking about two different things right now. So what,
about the vehicles, the trucks that are going to be filling.
No,
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 we're
no.
talking about,
the applicant was stating that they would limit the vehicles that could go and receive fuel.
right,
The WB50 on the plan is limited to vehicles that would come to serve the site and provide fuel. So would it be accurate for all parties if we said that WB50 and up were prohibited from receiving fuel?
Yes.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Mr. Chair, is that okay?
one second, and the reason why I ask is a WB50 is a large tractor-trailer, all right? The tanker is basically. I would like to not have the larger box trucks. I mean, we could accept a potato chip truck, all right? But I don't want a full-size box truck, and that's why I recommended that we come up with a weight of the vehicle rather than trying to classify the type of vehicle by wheelbase.
Can we wait till John Ray testifies and perhaps he can give us a better definition and then if it's acceptable to the board, we can do that? Because he'll be testifying at some point during this process. Because
Fine.
I don't think Mr. Gill's going to be able to,
Yeah, I understand that.
so we'll leave that for John Ray to clarify a little further. This location will not have any mechanical work of any kind, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. No mechanical work,
No oil changes, nothing?
nothing.
All right. And you will not be selling outside oil or other products?
Yeah, there will be nothing outside, everything in the building, convenience store building.
Also, as it relates to backup generators, how do your gas stations normally provide for the backup power?
Yeah, a lot of our gas stations have, they call it switch.
Switch?
Yeah, a generator switch, so if something happens, we can rent a generator, or sometimes state provides a generator, so you bring the generator, hook up to that switch, and then you can, basically switch everything to generator.
So are you saying, though, that there's like an actual generator on site? Or are you saying that through the switch, you communicate with some other entity to get a generator that's delivered?
The architect will show it on the plan, or the engineer, but there's a location and a switch where a generator can be brought to the site, connected, and then operated.
But that's depicted on the plan, you're
That's
saying?
correct, and we'll
Okay.
get to that, but what the applicant's proposing is to have a non-permanent generator unless the board requires otherwise.
Mr. Alfieri,
Yes.
in the previous couple of applications that we've had, given what went on with Hurricane Sandy or Superstorm Sandy, it's very nice to say that you're going to have the port to plug in the mobile generator, but it took days to get generators to the locations. I think the board would like to see a on-site generator, permanent.
Yeah, we can do that. So at that time, Sandy, state came up with a program, the state of New Jersey, and they provided with some financial help to all the gas stations to put a switch based on the tank sizes and stuff. So at that time, now state has a program where something like that happens again, in few hours' notice, they can bring the generator to your site.
The state is bringing generators to private entities?
Yes.
That's true, Chief?
It's true because of what happened with Sandy. They don't want people going that far inland to get fuel, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
I think also it's important to highlight,
Met some of our strategic
and Mr. Alfieri, you may know better than I do, and I think, Mr. Gill, you alluded to it, there's like an administrative code requirement that's codified at the state level regarding this process, right?
There are written regulations from the state that control how you're supposed to provide for the switch at the gas stations.
I'm not sure about if there are any codes, but after Sandy, actually state went to almost every gas station in New Jersey. And if you had the capacity, minimum capacity they were looking for, they basically paid gas stations
I
to
understand
install a
all
switch.
that.
Yeah.
I guess what I was getting at was, you know, because I think there is a state regulatory structure and just, you know, basically a representation that you comply with it. That's something I think we can, you know, you can look at.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that, but we can
Okay.
look into that, yeah, sure.
Okay. That's all the questions we have of Mr. Gill, Mr. Chair.
Chief, would you like to ask questions?
In reference to the generator, you said you have 70 other
Yes.
gas stations throughout New Jersey? Were you required to have any other on-site generators at any of those 70 gas stations by any other municipality?
I can remember only one.
That's all I have.
Anybody else have questions?
Mr. Chair, I have just a couple quick questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. Regarding employee parking, would the employees park in the parking area furthest from the building?
Yes,
Okay. Are you able to restrict some of those spaces for employee parking? Is that what you're proposing?
yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
Okay, and which spaces would those be?
Yeah, the far end, we can put
That's-
signs there like employee only parking or something.
That's-
Peter,
okay. That's
Peter,
the
if we could hold off on this, I don't know if the engineer or the traffic engineer, but I've got some issues with that. and
Absolutely.
I would like to go to a professional rather than,
Yeah,
because
I just want to get his take on
it
it.
goes to with the whole filling of the fuel tanks where the tanker would lay over.
That sounds good.
So, yeah, if, Mr. Alfieri, if we can
That's fine.
later address that. I'm just curious, what is the configuration of your store so that you're representing that you have a very low volume convenience store operation, all right? And I'll be honest with you, I fill up a lot of times at the Wawas, all right? So I'm well versed in their operation. How can we be guaranteed that you won't have that volume of people? What's your store? Do you have the terminals that Wawa has to order, you know, prepared food? How many racks are you going to have for the sale of packaged material? Can you give us any input on that?
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, a typical store like this, we have one customer counter, which is about 10 feet long, and then we have some small gondolas, and then you have a cooler which typically has from 8 to 12 doors, and then we have a counter a small counter for the coffee.
You're going to sell lottery tickets?
Yes.
Okay, so what you've just said is all what Wawa has.
Yeah, so we have this on a much smaller scale. So let me tell you a difference. Coffee, I will give you an example. A typical Wawa might sell 3,000 cups of coffee a day. So we are hoping to sell 50 cups of a day. So that's 60 times more.
Well, I understand that, but you're not explaining to me why you're saying that Wawa has the ability to, or sells so much more. I mean, are their stores 3 times the size of your stores? I'm trying to understand
they're-
why.
They're double the size, and they're offering typically is food and coffee, and we can't even come close to that.
So
Look
you're not going to have that extensive
extensively.
menu?
Look at their food offering. You know, most of their business is food and coffee. So you might have, you know, over 2,000 people just going in there, getting a cup of coffee. You know, a couple of hundred people buying sandwiches. In a station like us, again, we might have 40 customers a day getting a cup of coffee, or you know, few customers getting a can of a soda, or some lottery, or a candy.
But you're not going to have that fresh food preparation?
No.
Okay, all right, I was just curious.
Yeah.
And-
That's why I said, you know, sometimes you pass by any of the other stations except Wawa, peak time you will have 5 or 6 customers. Wawa could have, 50 customers at a peak time. So there's a big difference, between what we are trying to do and Wawa does.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Board have any other questions?
Sal, the environmental guy isn't here today, right?
No, he's not here tonight.
Mr. Chair, I just have some comments, and I don't know if this is the right time to bring them up if the environmental gentleman isn't present, or put them on the record now, or...
Just a quick will it be necessary that the environmental guy come to respond to them?
You want to hold it for the engineer?
Sure.
And if the,
I'm not sure if the engineer can...
and if the engineer
Yeah,
can't handle it?
just some general questions about the submittal, since we've received them and got a chance to review them.
All right, we'll see if the engineer can do it, and if not, we'll go from there. All right, at this time, I would like to open it up to the public to ask questions of the applicant. And this is just questions. Mr. Gaskarowski, you have any questions of the applicant?
Yeah.
You want to sit at the table? No, you sit.
No, there's 2 chairs here.
I want to get you set up first, okay?
Sorry, I'm cold, I have to go out in the car and get some drink.
It's okay here?
Yeah, it's fine, go ahead. I'm not going to be in your way, stay there.
Ms. Dixell, this is questions of the applicants, of the owner, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask the kind of question, is the applicant familiar with the original contamination letters from the site that was in 2009?
Well, I think that's more appropriate for the engineer.
Okay. Okay.
The applicant, his witness testified on the operation of the station. Do you have any questions regarding that?
The applicant said something about the trucks going in one way and coming out the other way. Can I address that?
No, the applicant didn't. The applicant agreed to ban larger wheelbase trucks from filling up with fuel.
No, I'm not
But the
okay.
specifics of that, they deferred until Mr. Ray testifies.
Right.
Okay, the entrance, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so, because I have a lot of,
So that'll all be for Mr. Ray.
okay, it's because I have a lot of original documentation that I have had since 2009.
Okay.
So I'll wait.
The applicant didn't testify.
Ms. Driscoll said she would wait.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
All right, Mr. Alfieri, I'm
Okay.
going to close the public, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I do have some questions. Mr. Gill, my name is Ron Gazarovski, and I really introduce myself as an attorney with offices in Red Bank, and I represent...
Mr. Gazarovski, just hold on. We're,
Share it?
Or just pull that mic closer to you.
yeah, or take
It's either
the
that or
cordless.
use the podium.
Yeah.
You can use it, that's
Are
fine.
you picking me up now?
Now, yes.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Gill. My name is Ron Gazarovski. I'm an attorney with offices in Red Bank, New Jersey. I earlier identified myself, and I represented to the board that I represent a business owner located in Howell Township down the road, and he, in fact, also operates a gasoline station. I think you introduced yourself as a principal in Gill Petroleum, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I believe you also said that you have approximately 70 stores, not 70 stores, but 70 facilities located throughout the state of New Jersey.
Yes, sir.
Now, are all of these gas stations also associated with a convenience store, or are some of them freestanding gas stations?
Some of them freestanding also.
Some are freestanding?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now, approximately how many do you have that are a combination of a gas station and a convenience store?
Might have close to 25.
25?
Yeah.
Okay,
And then we have some which have garages in them,
Okay.
repair shops.
okay. Now, with regard to the gasoline pumps, how many pumps will there be on this site?
5 pumps.
And 4 of them will be gasoline pumps, and 1 of them will be a diesel pump?
Yes,
And how many islands will there be?
2 islands.
And on what islands will the diesel pump be located?
It's, if you look at the
Let me make it perhaps easier to answer. Will the island that contains the diesel pump also contain a gasoline pump?
yeah, it's a separate island. I don't know what you mean by that, yeah.
The diesel pump will be on a separate island?
The diesel, yeah, it's its own separate island.
Okay, now, why would you have the diesel pump on a separate island if you did not intend to utilize it for servicing large trucks, including perhaps tractor trailers? What would be the reasoning for having the diesel pump on a single island?
I don't think that makes any difference. If you look at the configuration, if,
It's on the same island.
I think you need to clarify, they're separated. I don't want to testify, but if you look at the
You
plan.
testify.
There's two pumps on the island. I think they're separated, so when he says an island, he's talking about a portion of that row. If you see, look at that plan, Ron, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Well, let's let the applicant
Yeah, or the
clar-
engineer
clarify.
can give you a better description.
Or that's his answer, so we'll accept his answer, and if it needs to be revised later by another
There were
witness.
earlier questions posed to you with regard to the utilization of a high-speed pump, correct?
yes,
Now, high-speed pumps oftentimes, or most always have, in addition to the main pump, they also have what's called a slave pump as well, do they not?
yes,
So that you, when a trailer pulls up and there are gasoline tanks on either side of a truck, you can pump gas into each of those containers separately.
yes, sir.
So is it your representation before this board that at no time now and/or in the future will you ever attempt to install on this facility a high-speed pump along with a slave pump is like an auxiliary pump now and/or into the future? It's going to be simply a diesel pump for the purposes of servicing automobiles and small vehicles such as pickup trucks and things like that.
Yes, sir, yeah.
That's going
Those,
to be,
yeah, I think,
and if in fact this board were to grant you approval, you would agree to have that restriction in that resolution?
yes, sir, yeah.
Okay.
I think what you don't understand is, typically the slave pumps are designed only for truck stops. And slave pumps only work if those islands are only for diesel. This station is gas. We are going to pump 95% of our business is going to be gasoline. So we can't have a slave pump on the other island and car sitting in the middle. the way the slave pumps work is that you have two islands side by side, and they are diesel islands
But
only.
having said
There's no
that-
gas
Well,
included in
guys,
that.
Having said that,
Yeah.
you're not going to have a high-speed pump, and you're not going to have a slave.
Yes, sir.
And you will agree that not only will you not have it now, but in the future as well.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Now, with regard to the 25, approximately 25 facilities that you have, that have both a convenience store as well as a gasoline series of pumps, are there any which are located in Monmouth County?
Yeah, yes.
Where at?
We have, Monmouth County, we have Middletown,
Where? Middletown?
yeah.
What is the
Aberdeen,
name of that station?
BP,
BP?
yeah. You want me to name all of them?
Yes, please.
We have Middletown, we have 2 in Neptune City, we have Bradley Beach, we have Aberdeen, we have Matawan, and I guess that's it.
Okay,
if
that's
I
fine,
remember.
and I thank you for that. Can you tell me the one that is closest with regard to the size of the store and the number of pumps you have compared to this proposed facility? Do you understand the question?
Yes,
Okay. Which ones would that be?
most of them are like that.
Well, tell me the one that's closest to this.
Closest to distance-wise, you mean?
Closest to the size of the store and the number of the pumps.
Almost, a typical gas station in New Jersey has 4 to 6 pumps, and a 3-bay garage and a convenience store. So,
I'm sorry, 3-bay garage?
yeah, garage, or a convenience store. So we have one in Aberdeen is same size, one in Neptune City is same size.
Okay, so if I wanted to, and I've listened to your testimony with regard to the number of cups of coffee you're going to sell, and I think you said you'd sell 30 cups a day or 30 cups an hour?
I said 50 cups a day,
50 cups of coffee a day,
yeah,
that's a period of, you're operating 24 hours a day.
yes,
So you're saying that during that period of time, you're going to sell an average of 2 cups of coffee an hour? Is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
from 6 to 9, I might sell 25 cups, and some hour I might sell only 1 cup a day.
Just give me,
1 cup an hour, I mean.
just tell me what you believe the average number of cups you're going to sell a day in this facility.
I will think maybe 50 cups a day,
50 cups a day?
yeah.
So if I were to request that you produce at a later time, while this hearing is going on, the operator of that Aberdeen store, he'll be able to give testimony under oath as to how many cups of coffee he sells a day.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, what relevance would that have to what the board has to consider, though? It
Well,
may, just, if you could just clear it up for me.
Well, first of all, it goes to his credibility. Okay. Secondly, it goes to the fact that this particular location is located on a highway, and it's vastly undersized as far as the size of the property. He's going for a number of variances with regard to buffering and setbacks and the like, and I think it's relevant.
Is it partially towards, and you're talking about intensity, that would relate to traffic, on the site, ingress, egress, internal circulation, availability of parking spaces,
Absolutely.
things like that?
When you are going back to Red Bank today, I want you to go through Freehold, and you will see a smaller property with a 7-Eleven and
I don't
same
care
kind
about
of
7-Eleven.
configuration.
Well,
I
let's,
don't care.
hold on.
BP gas station, yeah.
Both of you, hold on for one moment.
Yeah.
So I was discussing an issue with Mr. Gazarovski. When that's done, Mr. Alfieri can ask you more questions, if you'd like. And actually, after Mr. Gazarovski's finished as well. So that line of questioning, you're saying, goes towards whether the board should place any weight on the testimony we're hearing from Mr. Gill, and as well as the intensity of the site and how that relates to the reports and professional testimony that they're giving?
For example, I use the word credibility because an issue has arisen when he refers to,
A little closer to the mic.
He refers to how many cups of coffee he believes a Wawa would sell in a day. And how many was that, Mr. Gill?
It's over 2,000 cups.
2,000 cups of coffee a day,
Yeah.
and you're going to be selling 50 cups a day?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm telling you that from my 30 years of experience doing this.
That's fine. Now, I think what that goes to is, number one, for example, with regard to parking. He says he has 4 employees there during the daytime, 2 for the gasoline, 2 for the store, that's 4 spaces. We know that he's deficient with his parking, so anybody who's coming in for a cup of coffee, they got to park their car, walk past all of the pumps to get to the convenience store. And I would suggest that the safety of that is somewhat tied into the number of cups he's selling. For example, if a person is just driving by, not going to get gas, pulls in,
Yeah.
they want in to get a cup of coffee.
Mr. Kuchera, Mr. Gazarovski's testifying now.
I'm not testifying.
He's trying to explain, he's trying to answer my question, which is why that line of
And
questioning.
quite frankly, I think that these questions, which I concur, I was going to pose to the applicant, all right? And that's why I cut off our planner, all right? I think are more appropriately to be answered by the engineer or the traffic engineer.
Respectfully, Mr. Chairman, I don't agree with that for this reason. We know that engineers, they all refer you to what's called an ITE study, which gives you numbers with regard to cars and things of that nature. Here we have an operator who's coming in seeking numerous variances for the creation of this building, and he also says that he has 25 similar stores, perhaps a half a dozen of which are in Monmouth County. And I think that how they operate, and he's the operator, is relevant, and he's better qualified to answer some of those questions than the traffic engineer or the engineer himself, and more particularly, and I don't know whether he is or he isn't, the operator of that store is the best one who's qualified to answer those questions.
Mr. Chair,
Can I answer it?
well, just a moment. I think, we as a board can determine who we want to ask questions to. Here, the applicant has testified to certain things, and any door he's opened, Mr. Gazarovski has a right, constitutional due process right, to ask him about anything that he raised. My question was just how this would relate to what the board's jurisdiction is, which is to determine whether our ordinances have been satisfied, and if they haven't, whether relief should or should not be granted. And I think that's what Mr. Gazarovski was trying to explain to me. But on the parking issue, though, Mr. Gazarovski, I don't think they require relief from parking, do they?
Pardon me?
I don't think they require any relief from the number of parking
My
spaces.
recollection of reading the report was 20 spaces are required, they have 17. Maybe I'm mistaken.
I don't think so.
I thought it was 18 and 18.
I'll stand corrected if I'm...
We reduced the size of the building from the
Reduced the size of the
report
building.
that Mr. Gazarovski was referring to.
So he satisfied the parking there?
The engineer can testify to that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
And I want to make a comment about this
Wait.
because, go ahead.
Well,
Let them-
your comments are part of direct testimony. Right now, you're being cross-examined. Mr. Alfieri can allow you to comment further after the
I don't
cross-examination.
have a problem with his commenting if he wants to clarify something.
Well, that's fine, but
That's fine.
I think we would prefer you finish your
That's fine.
cross-examination.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gill. Mr. Gill, who is the person who is in charge with selecting sites for your gas stations?
I'm in charge with my partners.
Okay, fine. And I take it that what you do is you travel through an area which you believe perhaps is heavily traveled, and perhaps there's not as numerous gas stations as you think there should be there, so you would find it to be a place where you could place a gas station in and be competitive and have it be profitable, correct? That's why you're in business.
That's one of the criteria, but not always.
What are the other criteria?
In this case, we didn't come here and look at the traffic and stuff. This property was owned by BP, and we are customers of BP. We have a relationship with BP.
Okay.
And they said, we are no longer in developing gas stations, so if you guys want to buy the property and You can buy in, it's a
so-
gas station already, so you can
You were
develop.
contacted by BP, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you went out to the site,
Yeah,
you looked at the property?
yes, sir.
Did you also perform any due diligence with regard to the zoning?
Yes, sir.
Okay, did you do any due diligence with regard to the size of the property and what the requirements were as far as size of the building, setbacks, and whether or not it was conforming to the zoning? Did you do that?
Not at the time when I bought the property.
Okay. Well, but you bought numerous properties, haven't you? So you've gone through this at least 50 to 70 times.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, some of those were existing gas stations
Well,
already.
this was an existing gas station also, wasn't it?
But it was a closed
I
gas
understand
station.
it was closed, but it was an
Hold on.
existing gas station.
Mr. Gazarovski, you got to let him finish the
I'm
answer.
sorry. I apologize. When you purchased this property, it was an existing gas station for whatever reason it may be.
Yes, sir.
BP chose not to operate it any further,
Yes,
correct?
sir. Yes, sir.
Were there islands for the presence of having pumps present on them?
There were no pumps when we bought them. There were islands.
Pardon me?
There were islands, still, the
The
islands.
islands were there, but the pumps were removed.
Right.
Okay. Was there a convenience store located on this property?
No, sir.
Were there diesel pumps that had previously been open on the property?
It's possible. I don't know
You don't
that.
know for a fact?
Yeah.
Okay. How many pumps were there when it was being operated by BP?
I think same amount, 6 pumps.
Pardon?
6 pumps,
6 pumps, and how many pumps will you have now in total?
6 pumps.
Okay. But BP did not have a convenience store.
Yes.
So if you wanted to, you could have bought this property, refurbished or renovated, whatever it may be, the existing islands and the pumps, and you could have ran a gas station, correct?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to just object because it's a permitted use, and I'm not sure what the relevancy of these questions are. He could also put something else there besides a gas station, so I'm not sure where we're
Well,
going.
I think, Mr. Gazarovski, is your line of questioning focused on more like the C1 criteria for the bulk variances as to whether there is a hardship
That's
somehow?
part of it, yes.
But isn't the hardship associated with the property and not what the buyer, the owner's intent is?
Well, you can certainly argue that. I think part of it is whether the size, shape, topography of the property somehow creates a hardship for the use of the property as a permitted use. So I think somewhere within what Mr. Gazarovski is asking about, there are elements of, despite the fact that it is, I'm not saying this is true or not, but I think the questions are geared towards this, despite the size, shape, and topography of the property, there were some permitted uses that may have required less or no variance relief except for property size.
And we
But
can
I think you've established that,
We
Mr.
can
Gazarovski.
stipulate that that's a fact, of course it is.
What are you stipulating to?
That something can be built here with either no variances or less variances.
You're stipulating to that.
Yeah, of course.
And you're stipulating to the fact that there was previously a gas station there of a size and configuration that you simply could have replicated and utilized?
The testimony described exactly what was there, so I don't know if we need to stipulate anything further than what was testified.
Well, also, I don't think it's part of the record in any, other than a recollection by the applicant as to exactly what was there, where it was precisely located. Some of it was removed, which may have necessitated other relief when it was put back. But I think the board understands the line of questioning and what's been stipulated to.
Now, were you aware of the fact when you purchased this property, and you were basically expanding the use on the property, were you not? In other words, previously, it was just used for the dispensing of gasoline, but you wanted to not only dispense gasoline, but you also wanted to sell food products and the like in his convenience store, correct?
Yes, sir.
Were you aware of the fact that if you wanted to do that, you would have to satisfy certain requirements of the zoning ordinance, such as having a buffer between your commercial use and the residential use, which was on the other side of Wyckoff Road.
I would object in that I don't think he's qualified to answer a legal question or zoning questions.
I would agree with that, Mr. Chair. Also, I would say that there's not a requirement that you have to satisfy. There's also an option to seek relief. This is a matter of law.
I agree you seek relief, but you've got to secure either a waiver or a variance to do that.
Well, that's what they're here for.
I understand that, but I want to know whether or not when he purchased the property, he was aware of that.
Well, what difference does that make as to whether he has satisfied the positive and negative criteria?
Well, what it has to do is if he's buying something which he knows is undersized in square footage, and he wants to create a use which is greater in square footage that's permissible based upon buffering and setbacks, I think that goes to the issue of whether or not he satisfied the positive and negative criteria.
I don't agree as a matter of law. Your knowledge of the fact that you need relief doesn't satisfy the negative and positive criteria. The design and the merits of the design or lack thereof is what satisfies the negative criteria. Whether it promotes the goals of planning, whether there's a hardship, that has nothing to do with your knowledge. That goes to the quality of your submission, and the negative criteria also doesn't go to your knowledge. That would require the board in any application where an applicant is aware that a variance is necessary, which is every application where a variance is required, because it's part of the notice, that there's somehow a demerit against them, in satisfying the criteria, which I don't think is the legal standard.
Well, would you agree, Mr. Cuccinero, that based upon what was there, many of those violations, let's say, of present standards would have been grandfathered in by the prior use that was there? And he no longer has the protection of that.
That is, if you're seeking protection as a pre-existing, non-conforming structure or use, that's not for me or this board to decide. That's exclusively in the jurisdiction of the zoning board, so I could not answer that one way or the other.
Okay.
I mean, can I make, sorry.
Let me just, and I'm almost through. Do you operate any of, I'm sorry,
Go ahead. No,
I thought you were pointing at me.
no.
Are you, maybe when you were a younger man you did it, but now at present, do you operate any of these facilities among the 70 gas stations that you have?
Can you define operate? You mean, does he pump gas?
No, operate, let's say operate the store, be there as the overall manager of the store.
Not overall, but I mean, I visit the stores.
You go from store to store.
You're right. I go to station, if I'm buying gas at my own gas stations, and if the guys are busy, I come out and start pumping gas with them.
Okay.
If I go into a convenience store, if the cashier is busy, I go try to help them, yeah.
I take it that with regard to the store itself, all of these sales are in fact plugged into a computer, are they not?
Yes, sir.
So if I wanted to find out how many cups of coffee any of these stores in Monmouth County would sell during the course of the day, you would be able to go into your computer and provide me with proof of that, would you not?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what's the size of the store itself in this particular case? I don't recall that.
I think it's about close to 3,000 square feet.
How many?
3,000?
It's on one level, correct?
Yeah.
Now, I know that you testified you're selling coffee, and how many coffee machines are there at this counter where the coffee is served?
Typically, we have 2 coffee brewers, 1 or 2 coffee brewers, and then we...
Is there a place inside the store for a person to buy a cup of coffee and sit down at a table?
No.
Okay. Now, in addition to that, what type of food stuff, is any of the food prepared on site?
No, sir.
You have donuts delivered to the site and sold there.
Yes, sir.
You have prepared sandwiches brought to the site and sold there.
Yes.
You've told me that you sold approximately 30 cups of coffee a day.
I said 50 cups.
Pardon?
I said approximately 50 cups.
A day?
Yeah.
Then I misheard you.
He's been
He said it
consistent.
several times.
He's been consistent with 50.
Okay. how about by way of sandwiches or donuts? How many of, typically, I guess if a person buys a cup of coffee, he probably also buys a soda or a sandwich or something of that sort.
So, I'm giving you the average numbers, right? So it's very hard for me to set because, you know, we are selling lot of items. It's very hard for me to describe each, how many sandwiches we are selling. Tomorrow, next you are going to ask me how many M&M candy bars I'm selling. I can't describe each item. Coffee is a general item. I can tell you maybe we are selling, 50 cans of soda. Those general items. But
That's fine. Now, in addition to the coffee, the donuts, and the sandwiches, are there other things sold in the store that would be typically found in perhaps a 7-Eleven or a Wawa as far as cleaning materials or lighter fluid or candy bars and other things such as that?
Yeah, candy bars, not cleaning fluids. I mean, typical these stores right on the highway, people don't come and,
How about milk?
buy napkins.
Sell milk?
Milk, yes, sir.
Sell bread?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And bread is again, typical this kind of store, we used to sell bread, but not anymore. Nobody buys bread at these.
How about
highways.
newspapers?
Yeah, newspaper we sell. And that's going away too.
Now,
People used to walk in the store and buy newspapers. They're not doing it anymore.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
You were going to say something before, but you were going out of turn. Do you want to finish what you were saying?
Yeah, so I lost my thought, but one comment I wanted to make was that he was talking about the property we bought from BP, but what he doesn't know is that after we bought that property, we spent a couple of $100,000 buying a property next door on recommendation of this board.
Not this board.
Zoning board, sorry. And then if you look at the canopy is still there. If you go there, the gas station part or gas part is larger size now. It has a very long canopy. It covered almost the whole property. That gas station had almost 4 islands. And it has a small kiosk in the middle, which was being used as a small convenience store. It was selling cigarettes and soda. So we have bought extra property. We have reduced the canopy size and the number of islands, and that's why we are able to put a convenience store here.
Mr. Gill, so the fact that you started before the zoning board and then you acquired the extra property and wound up before this board, I'm assuming the purchase of the property brought you within the standards of the conditional use ordinance?
That's correct. That's correct. And I actually think the conditional use ordinance it might have been adopted since we first filed the zoning board application. I have to check the date. Because the town changed the ordinance for another gas station, I think, over by 33 a few years ago. And that's...
I would just say that
But yeah.
there was no ordinance that was changed for a particular gas station. There was an ordinance that applied generally.
That's correct. But in any event, the circumstances have changed since the zoning board application was filed.
Okay.
So another comment, I think I mentioned 3,000 square feet. Actually, what we have done, now I remember, originally we proposed 3,500 square, but we have reduced that size to 2,700 square feet.
2,700?
2,700.
That's all the questions.
Well, Mr. Chair, we just need to make sure there's no one else in the public who wants to ask any questions.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to ask questions of the applicants of what was testified on?
Well, anything that's relevant to his testimony, but also nothing that's repetitive of what Mr. Gazarovski has also asked.
Because the kiosk in the middle, I think it's still sitting there, it's pretty large size. They were selling.
Mrs. Dixell, you're going to have to get closer to the microphone. And also, please state your name and give us your address.
My name is Barbara Dixell, 62A Piazza Vittoria, Freehold, New Jersey, resident of the Villages. Thank you very much. Mr. Gill, did you just say that, that the station had sold, sold stuff on the station before you got it? Or in previous, the station sold, could have been coffee or anything else that they sold on that station?
I don't think
Not
he
coffee,
testified to that.
It sold cigarettes,
That
So-
station sold cigarettes?
yes, cigarettes, soda, and dry items, yeah. In the middle, the kiosk they have, and
All right, Mr. Gill, I live there. I see it every day. I face it.
we know.
Nobody has been
Yeah.
on that station in more than 2 years, and they never, ever, ever sold
Mrs.
anything but gas.
Mrs. Dixell, that's your testimony now. Those are not questions.
Okay.
So,
Are you, and I'll ask the question. Are you aware that they never sold anything on that station but gas?
well, he just told you what he's aware of.
Well,
Yeah.
that's not what I were aware of. I live there.
Well, but Mrs. Dixell, listen to me. You're going to have an opportunity when it's open to the public to dispute that. Right now, you're just asking questions. You can, it's not, for you to agree or disagree, it's just for you to elicit the answer. And then when it comes time for you to testify, you can state what you personally know about the site and why you believe that this is wrong.
Are you aware that the canopy for the station is its original state and not longer or anything else, more than what it was years ago? It's in its original, are you aware that it's in its original broken down decrepit state?
The canopy?
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean by that.
Canopy over the kiosk or whatever.
You're
The
right.
the
It's
canopy
still-
that's on site,
it's-
Mr. Gill, is that the
When
original
we
one?
took over, I'm seeing that same way. I don't know what happened, what was there before.
Okay.
But since we bought the property, the same canopy, and it's standing the same way.
Okay, but are you aware that it's the exact same thing that it's been for very, very many years?
He answered the question,
Okay.
Mrs. Dixell.
All right. How do you propose to make everything fit that you have proposed, being that this is a undersized, non-conforming lot, and you need 80,000 square feet, and you got to add 28,000 square feet?
Mr. Alfieri, is that something that your other professionals?
Our engineers and traffic engineer,
Okay, no problem.
eccentric.
Absolutely. Okay, with reference to the coffee, and what you estimate or propose to sell coffee, are you aware that there's a housing development directly opposite the station that a lot of residents may come across to purchase coffee and?
Yes.
Okay, and are you aware that they also go to Exxon to do the same thing every day? They walk right out of the Villages and go into Exxon and buy coffee, and so can you be aware that you may sell a lot more than 50 cups of coffee a day?
I will be happy if I can sell
Well, I'm just saying
100
with
cups,
reference to
but
your
I'm telling you
business.
from my 30-year experience, he knows his customer, Exxon, he can ask them how many
Well,
cups.
Mr. Gill, let's stick to what the question is.
Sorry, yeah.
Are you based upon what Mrs. Dixell has asked you, are you changing your testimony from the 50 cups a day estimate?
No, I'm not changing it.
All right, that's the answer.
Yeah, so.
That's the answer.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Gill, that's the answer.
Okay.
Can I get a clarification?
Well, why don't you wait until Mrs. Dixell's done?
I apologize.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Okay, I'll ask him other stuff, because I need to ask him other stuff about the lottery tickets. Okay, I'll come back.
No. You are asking questions.
Okay, well,
You'll
I-
ask him till you're done.
Okay. With reference to selling the lottery tickets, do you realize that will you have a sign in the window or a sign on the station that can be seen from the road that will let people know that you're going to sell the lottery tickets, or it's just going to be in the store when they come in?
Most of the signs will be whatever township or they allow us to put on.
Mr. Gill, it's a very specific question. Is there going to be a sign that people can see that says you can buy lottery tickets?
There might be a sign in the window, yes.
Okay.
Okay, then, would you also agree that you might get a lot more volume of people and cars and coffee and whatever else, because people might come in and buy the lottery tickets?
So, Mr. Gill, based upon your intention to sell lottery tickets, would that change your testimony at all regarding the volume of people that you expect to visit the site?
No, sir.
Okay, well, I'll ask you another question with regard to the lottery tickets. It's kind of a thing that if there is are you aware that when there's a large lottery, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, that people flock from everywhere? You aware that will your station be able to hold any large amount of people if there is a very proposed large lottery to be bought and won?
Yes.
See-
Well,
He answered it. He said yes.
okay.
Can I just ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Do you know if the Exxon that is located just at the intersection of Strickland Road, does that Exxon also sell lottery tickets?
I have not gone in there, but I'm sure they does.
Yeah.
If they have
Oh, but you don't know for sure?
Yeah, I'm not sure, yeah.
But the 7-Eleven a few hundred feet south of him does.
Typically from my experience, I can tell you typically these stores located on Route 9 highway, they don't sell that much lottery. The stores which are busier on lottery are typically located in, where they have a lot of walk-in traffic, downtown locations, different kind of neighborhoods, not this area.
Mr. Gill, are you aware, and I'm going to ask you specifically, are you aware that Exxon, which is right there, sells lots of lottery tickets, and also Exxon gas station, the 7-Eleven and the Exxon gas station sell a lot of lottery tickets because we're always there, and there's always traffic, and you can't get in
You're
or out.
testifying.
And you already testified he was unaware that the Exxon
Oh,
stole
okay,
lottery.
but are you aware that both Exxon and 7-Eleven do sell lottery tickets?
He already stated
All right.
that he has no knowledge of what
Okay.
Exxon does or doesn't do.
Okay.
What I can say is that every time I pass
Mr.
by
Gill, do you
Route
really
9
want to say anything?
All right, thank you very much. I'll just ask him, I got a whole bunch of other stuff to ask, so I'll just wait.
No, you cannot wait. He's here, you're here. You will ask the totality of your questions to Mr. Gill, or you will have no more opportunity to ask
Okay,
them.
so are you familiar, or have you ever seen the, any letters from Stantec dating back to 2009, when the original
Well, have you ever seen any letters from Stantec at all?
No.
Okay. So whatever's in that pile, he has not heard about it, he has no knowledge of it.
All right, would it be possible for you to want to see it?
Well, that's not his area, that's not what he's testifying to. So to the extent that may involve engineering or something else, you can certainly use that with the other witnesses,
Okay.
but not with Mr. Gill.
Are you aware that this station is still on the contaminated properties list?
He didn't testify to that.
Okay. Then anything else that I have has to be to other people, I guess.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Mr.
So I'll have to
Gasparowski,
wait for
you
other
had a
people.
follow-up question?
Well, just want to clarify one thing. I want to clarify the number of cups of coffee that he anticipates selling
He,
in a 24-hour period.
he has said 50 multiple times, is that correct, Mr. Gill?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Why was I, the last time, where did the number 300 come from?
I cannot explain why you heard that, but I can only tell you what he said.
So it's 50 cups a day?
That's what he's
50 cups a
testified
day,
to.
and that's what he testified.
Yeah.
An average of about 2 cups an hour.
Also, I didn't ask this, and I should have, but I know Mr. Alfieri, I think as a courtesy, will provide it to me. I know that we have Middletown, Neptune City, Bradley, Aberdeen, and Manawan. What I would like to get, I think you said in Middletown it was a BP station that you're operating, correct?
Yes, sir.
What I'd like to get, if I could, is just the names of those stations and their addresses. I don't need to tie up the board's time. If Mr. Alfieri will send me that in the next week, I would appreciate that.
Just also, as clarification, I don't think he said Neptune City or Neptune Township. He just said Neptune.
Just said Neptune.
Yeah.
Oh, whatever it may be. Okay, then I have no further questions.
That's all we have from Mr. Gill.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Close public?
Yes, well, I'm going to close the public portion for this witness.
We're now going to,
We're going to take a
Okay.
5-minute break, please.
thanks.
Thank you.
Planning board will now reconvene. Mr. Husser.
Here.
Chief Kudrick.
Here.
Mr. Schneider. Mr. Seaman.
Here.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Here.
Chairman Nash. You have a quorum. Everybody's accounted for.
Mr. Chair, we're going to recall our engineer who did testify at the last meeting. For the record, please state your name and who your company.
My name is Brian. Is this on?
Tap it. Yeah, it's on.
My name is Brian Shortino. I work for Burton Engineering Associates.
And you understand you remain under oath from your last testimony?
Yes, I understand that.
Purpose of the record, can you just spell your name again?
Shortino.
And Mr. Shortino, since the last hearing, you prepared and submitted a revised plan, is that correct?
That's correct.
Can you summarize for the board the changes that were made to the plan since that last hearing?
Yes, there was a number of changes. I'll go through the list. What I'd like to do is reference the exhibit we prepared also when I explain each change. So,
This is has this been marked before?
This
Why
is
don't
a-
you explain what the exhibit is? Let's see if it's been pre-marked.
It has not.
no, this hasn't been marked because this is new. We just brought it because it's
Tonight? Okay, so
it's,
let's mark this as A19. And what is A19?
A19 is entitled Landscape Rendering, and it has a date of January 7th, 2016, but a latest revision date of April 18th, 2019.
It looks, is that part of that, like a color rendering?
Yeah, we call it landscape rendering. Essentially what it is, it's a colorized version of the site plan and the landscape plan.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Shortino, can you bring that a lot closer so the board can see it? Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. So we made a number of changes on the plan, and I'll go through them in no particular order. But the major change we did was we reduced the size of the building from 3,000 square feet to 2,700 square feet. So we made that specific change. Then, with respect to the diesel dispenser, we actually relocated the diesel dispenser and we put it, there's actually 2 individual dispensers, one on each row. So there's a diesel dispenser on the island nearest to the store and nearest to Route 9. Then there's a second row of dispensers parallel to Wyckoff Mills Road, and the middle dispenser also has the middle island, has the diesel dispenser located there also with a multi-product dispenser. So With respect to the islands, there's 2 rows of islands. The island closest to Route 9 there's 3 separate islands, and it has 3 individual multi-product dispensers. And as I just mentioned, it also has a diesel dispenser on the island closest to the building. But with that in mind, you can't get diesel or gas at that island that has the 2 dispensers at the same time. There's not enough room. So, and the same thing happens on the island road closest to Wyckoff Mills Road. So there's 3 islands there. The center island has the diesel dispenser and the multi-product dispenser. But again, only 1 vehicle on each side of the island could be served at a time, whether it be diesel or gasoline.
So that's a correction to what Mr. Gill testified to then. He said 1 diesel dispenser. Right, and your testimony is there's 2.
That's correct.
Okay.
Just with respect, we have a sign that was indicated and shown on the drawings, the revised drawings. There's a sign at the entrance driveway along Route 9 that says no tractor trailer fueling. So that sign was added based on when we had the comments from the initial application or initial testimony when we were here last time. With respect to the dumpster location, we had a dumpster and a loading zone on the easterly side of the building. There was concerns with maneuverability and when trucks would be loading in that loading zone. So what we did was we actually removed the loading zone that was there, and we put a parking space in front of it, and the trash enclosure recycling area was moved closer to the, I'll just call it the pavement area. So we do have a sign added to the front of that dumpster trash enclosure area that says no parking, and the time is, let's see where it was. I think it was between 5 and 7 a.m. So we, because that's when we anticipate the trash to be picked up. So we have a sign on the doors of the trash enclosure that say no parking between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. for that reason. So with respect to the loading zone, what we did was along the easterly side of the property, we've indicated an area 10 by 60 feet where if deemed necessary, when there's loading necessary to be done for servicing the convenience store, that's where the vehicle would be parked. And it wouldn't be causing any conflicts with any of the fueling facilities activities underneath the canopy.
I'm sorry, I'm not following. Where is that loading area?
It's not shown on this plan, but it's where I described it. It's shown on the site plan
I'm
drawings.
looking at the site plan drawing.
Do you want me to point it out?
Look, the screen's up.
Oh,
It's up on the screen.
okay, I'm sorry, it's on the screen. So somebody just highlighted it. There it is, 10 by 60 space for loading. That's a,
Yeah, you can zoom out a little.
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not used to this, looking at these on screens. But
And if a vehicle is parked in that loading zone, loading space, if you will, and you have a vehicle parked at that southernmost island, which is just to the southwest of where the 5x8 kiosk call-out is.
right.
Is there enough room for a car to get between those 2 vehicles to get to one of the other 2 pumps that are north of that on that side?
Well, your question is if one's being fueled at that time and then there's a vehicle there?
If there's a car being fueled and there's a truck laying over in that loading zone, can a car coming in access those other 2 islands that are north of it?
I have to look at another plan.
For the board. Can you hold it there? I'm saying if there's a vehicle being fueled here and there's a truck laying over here, is there enough room for a vehicle to get around between those 2 vehicles to to access these two islands?
Yeah, it would be kind of dependent on what size truck is in that 10-foot by 60-foot space. If there was a WB-50, your answer would be no. You probably wouldn't be able to get a car around there. But if it was something smaller, say a single unit, a 30-foot truck, and he was pulled up to the front, then you would be able to get somebody, passing around it if that scenario had occurred. But the thing is, with respect to the loading, something like that, to bring the products into the convenience store, typically that happens once a week.
Well, you get the soda trucks, the Coke trucks that come in, which are those small tractor trailers.
And there's certain facilities that have these, they're all combined in one delivery a week, where they do have the soda involved. It's not all individual activities such as that, as you're describing.
How much is it deficient by?
How much is what deficient by?
The gap between the two? I mean,
Well, we have the overall dimension there. Let me see. It was like 23 feet at that one point. That's in the review letters. So if you subtract 10 feet, so that gives you 13 feet, and
So you have zero space, really?
well, again, yeah, it's dependent if, just that one specific scenario you're referencing. I mean, that's the island located furthest away from the store. If there was nobody in the other two, most likely that person would pull up all the way. And that's the most remote island from coming in from Route 9. So you would use that one if possibly if all the other ones, the other 6 positions closest to Route 9 were being filled, and even the inside ones on that island. So could it potentially happen? Yes, it could potentially happen. But in my opinion, it's very highly unlikely that specific occurrence that you just mentioned could ever happen. It could, no doubt it could, but it would be my testimony that would be a highly unlikely scenario.
Are you going to talk more about the on-site circulation?
Well, I'm just going to go through all the changes first to the plans. That's what we feel is important to do with respect to the revised drawings. So when we reduced the size of the building, it actually reduced the parking requirement. So previously, we were required to have 20 spaces, and now with the reduction in the size of the building, we're only required to have 18 spaces, and we have indicated 18 spaces, so there's no parking variance required, and we comply with the parking requirements. At the last meeting, one of the board members suggested that we add an additional handicap spot closest to the front, so we did. Previously, there was only one handicap space by code. We only need one handicap space, but again, it was a comment by one of the board members to add an additional handicap spot, so we did. So we made that change, and we added the additional handicap space in the front.
Mr. Shortino, just on the parking spaces, they also all comply with all dimensional requirements?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they do. Your requirement is minimum stall at 19, and we show 19.
And the
Okay.
handicap space also, that complies
Excuse
with
me?
whatever, the handicap space complies whatever the ADA requirements are?
Yes. We have one, the first one has to be van accessible, 8-foot wide aisle, 8-foot wide space, and we do. And the second one, this one, we have a 11-foot space in a 5-foot wide aisle, but it has to be 16 feet wide for van accessible. So we have that, and the other one is, would just be the 5-foot wide aisle and an 8-foot wide space. Okay. We added wood guide rails along the parking areas along Route 9, the parking areas in the rear along Route 9 and along Wyckoff Mills Road. So we added wood guard rails there. I believe that was a comment or request by the board at the previous meeting. Okay, with respect to signage, we made certain changes to the signs. The freestanding sign was moved further southerly along Route 9. Previously, it was near the entrance. We moved it all the way to the southerly portion of the site. Also, the area of that freestanding sign was reduced. Previously, it was 129.4 square feet, and we reduced it to 80 square feet, which complies with your ordinance. We also reduced the height from 26.2 feet high to 25 feet high. Then with respect to the canopy, we've made some changes with respect to the canopy signage and van. Previously, all four sides were illuminated. There was an illuminated band. So we reduced on two sides of that to make it non-illuminated, and that side would be the Wyckoff Mills, Wyckoff Mills Road side. We reduced, eliminated the illumination, and also the side which faces the store. So only two sides of the canopy would be illuminated. That would be the southerly side and the side facing Route 9. And then we also, we took the, and then they have the graphical helios are also on those same sides that are illuminated. There's no or helios on the Wyckoff Mills side or the side facing the store. Then with respect to the signage, we had four signs originally on the signage on the building, and we removed three of those, and we've only indicated one 55 square foot sign on the front of the building which faces south. Okay, we discussed this slightly with the applicant, but we indicated a generator pad on the easterly side of the building, which is closest to Wyckoff Mills Road, and there's also three pads for the coolers that are necessary for the the condensers, I'm sorry, that are used for the coolers inside the store.
So, could you explain to me, given the proximity of that pad for the generator and the trash enclosure, how you're going to get the portable generator to that pad?
Well, depending on the size and of the, I'm not sure what the size is. Okay, the architect will talk about that later because it goes hand in hand with what's necessary for the store. So we have the architect here, and if he gets to testify tonight, he'll answer that question. Okay, just with respect to some of the stormwater drainage, we did not need a, we didn't need to address stormwater quality, but we did put a water treatment unit on the site that would treat the water before it goes into the municipal system. We do have an infiltration system which is going to serve the roof drainage from the canopy in the building. That's been unchanged, but the other surface water which was being transferred into the municipal system, before it goes into there, it will go through a water treatment unit. Okay, this was a concern. The monitoring well data was checked, and it's our opinion that the infiltration system we're putting is more than 2 feet above the groundwater elevation. Then with respect to the lighting intensities, we did reduce some of the lighting intensities. We had a maximum previously of 23.72 foot candles, and that was reduced to 21.72. And we also reduced the intensities underneath the canopy.
And as it relates to lighting, you did revise the plan to show those details, is that correct?
That's correct. And we did, there was concern to show the lighting intensities beyond the property lines, and we did that also on the revised drawings.
If you could read it. Can you put up drawing C 2.4, please? asking him to make it a little larger so we can read the foot candle illumination.
This is by Wyckoff Mill Road.
Okay, can you go to underneath the canopy, please? Just pan it. And can we go to the area by the entrance off of Route 9? Okay. And these levels of illumination are consistent with what was recommended by the Institute of Illuminating Engineers?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we checked that because that was it was noted in the engineer's review letter, and I have it written down. Okay, so just for example, the IES for an approach in light surroundings, the requirement is 3 foot candles. And in those areas which you just mentioned on the entrance for Route 9, the approach itself is less than 3 foot candles. Then what the IES says with respect to the driveways should be 5, and we're kind of, in that same general area of being 5. There's some values higher, there's some values lower, but it's more or less my testimony that we're in that range of being 5 foot candles for the driveways along Route 9. And similarly for Wyckoff Mills Road, they are actually much less. Route 9 is a more active roadway, so we feel it should be brighter there at the driveways, and that's why it's acknowledged like that. And Wyckoff Mills Road is a much less intense driveway for this particular facility. And those values, even though IES says 5, we have much less than that. It's probably 1.5 right at the property line is the value we show. So we believe we're in conformance with the IES requirements.
What about the illumination underneath the canopy?
Underneath the canopy, I don't have that one written down.
And guys, when Brian comes back, you better tell him I did all this.
I have it. Okay, so under the, according to IES, they don't have canopy written, but they just have pump island area, which more or less is the same thing. Under light surroundings, the maximum they say is 30, and ours is much less. I don't even know if we have 20 underneath the canopy. So we're in compliance with that specific item also.
And these are all LED fixtures,
Yes, they are.
and they are downward, or dark sky compliant?
Yes, they are.
Thank you for nodding your head.
Okay. There was a request to show all the cars, how they would access the site and the canopy. So although it's not shown on the rendering that we indicated, on Plan 2.5, which is the truck circulation plan, we indicated passenger car circulations. That was a request by the board at the previous meeting. So basically, we showed with all the cars, a car parked at every island. So in each row, there would be 3 cars on each side of the islands. So it'd be 6 at this island row closest to Route 9, and there'd be 6 on the island row closest to Wyckoff Mills Road. But we show that even if they're all filled, passenger cars can bypass on the outside, in the center, and on the outside in all 3 locations. So again, that was a request by the board. We indicated those that passenger car circulation plan.
So that's the figure that you're speaking about, that is in the upper right-hand corner of drawing C2.5.
That's correct.
What is the drawing or the insert on the upper left-hand corner? What is that supposed to represent?
The upper left is the WB50. That would be the fuel delivery truck, and possibly it could even be the truck that brings the products to the C-store. But again, we just showed how the truck can go to disperse the fuel into the underground storage tanks, and it could access the site in either along Wyckoff Mills Road, or it actually could go out Route 9 also. So we just indicated that we have the freedom to be able to get a WB50 in this location and safely exit it onto either Route 9 or Wyckoff Mills Road. And then, since we're talking about it, the lower one, the lower left, is the garbage truck circulation plan. So we showed how it would come in off of Route 9. It would pull up to the trash enclosure, pick up the trash, back up, and it could either leave on Route 9 or Wyckoff Mills Road. So those were the three circulation templates that we prepared for the plan.
All right, could we go to the insert, the upper left insert? What I think Peter was starting to talk about, and I'm concerned about, is that this is, I'm referring to the area to the south of the canopy where there are the three circles. That's the fuel intake for the tanks. So your WB50 tanker is going to be lying over here.
That's correct.
That effectively is going to make access to these parking spaces very difficult.
Well, it's you're correct, and when the fueling activity is taking place, it could potentially block those areas off. And if I know there has been talk or discussion probably previously of probably making the 4 spaces closest to Wyckoff Mills Road, the employee spaces only, if we sign it. The other 5 spaces, I believe we discussed that possibly they may not even be necessary, and we can, they called it bank them. In other words, we wouldn't even install them. That could be a landscaped area. So we don't anticipate that area is going to really be used actively. I mean, when the employees park there, if that's the location, if they even have cars, but that's, they would be there for their shift, so they would be there for 8 hours. When a fuel delivery truck comes in to disperse the fuel, it's anywhere from a half hour to 45 minutes to disperse the fuel. So it's more or less a short-term duration. Plus, I think when it does pull in there, you would still have, it wouldn't be full two-way access, but you'd still be able to get in and out if you had to, for any type of emergency an employee had to.
Would the board have a problem if we designated, say, 6 of those spaces as employee parking?
He says there's only 4 employees working at one time. Right.
Yeah, but you got a shift change.
Are they all driving together? I mean, are they all driving separate cars? Some may be commuting together.
Well, that's fine enough for 6, figuring a couple of people are going to be together.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that I understand. The bank parking, you're not proposing the bank parking, but it's an option if that's a way that the board wants to go, or you would prefer to do the bank parking? I'm not sure where we are with the bank parking.
Well, I think when our traffic expert testifies, ultimately, he's going to say that the parking spaces immediately in front of the convenience store are adequate for the convenience store, because it's real, people fuel up and walk in to get something, or they'll go in quickly and come out. So the southern parking spaces were designed either for parking, for employees, or to meet the zoning ordinance standards, not for any practical purpose. But that's why we say, if to meet the ordinance, we could, if they're ever needed, we can bank them.
But that's what I'm asking, is are you proposing to physically construct 18 parking spaces or not?
The plan as proposed now, so we don't have to ask for the variances, that is proposing 18 spaces.
Okay.
When Mr. Ray testifies, he's going to suggest that they're not
Okay.
needed, and we can reduce that set
All right,
number.
all right, thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's where I was going with some of this.
Yeah.
Is that I was trying to determine what the board wanted for that southern parking area, and then to discuss a possible option of land banking.
So if you're concerned about the space behind that tanker, is it necessary to have all of this curbing here? Or just cut it off right here at the front of the parking spots and have this open?
I think the throat is preferable, all right? What my concern is that the tail end of this makes access and in and out somewhat difficult, all right? I agree that you could probably get in there, but it's just gonna be a squeeze mode. And that's why I figured if we designated these spaces as employee parking, then that would take the employees that might be parking here,
Right.
right, and put them over here.
Right. I agree with the four down at the bottom. What about, did you see what I mean about just continuing this curb line right to here? So you still have that, you still have the access coming in, it's just that now all this curbing is now reduced to allow more access.
Then you're directing the guy into if there's a vehicle parked there, you're kind of directing it into the side of the vehicle. Does the board have an opinion about what we want to do with designating employee parking spaces?
I like the four that are,
Like the four?
yeah.
Would the applicant agree to designate the four of the easterly parking spaces for employee parking only?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And then, based upon Mr. Ray's testimony, we may visit your land bank.
That's fine. One thing, I'm not sure you, and if I'm interrupting you, I just didn't want to forget to ask that. I know you mentioned the guide rails, but I don't know if you mentioned the bollards that are at the parking spaces
That's
at the
correct.
convenience store.
We also there's a series of bollards along the front parking area in front of the store. Obviously, that's for protection. Any potential car could possibly jump the curb and crash into the store. So we put bollards along the front of the store, also for additional safety.
Mr. Schneider, so recognize that.
I know that's his baby.
I have a concern, if I might.
Yeah, sure.
First, the parking in the southerly end of the application would lend itself to a travesty if anybody tries to traverse the property just to get to the store. If for some reason a customer did park down there, I mean, nothing's marked, nothing's striped, so somebody wouldn't even know where to walk, number one. But if we bank 4 spaces, then we have what looks to be 3 or 4 on the other side for,
Well, I think the board chairman suggested we bank the 4 spaces closest, not
To
bank, excuse me.
Wyckoff.
These
No,
four
not bank.
spaces
right, to Wyckoff.
4
for
spaces.
employee.
Are employee.
Correct.
right? And then, based upon what the traffic engineer is going to testify to, all right, I was going to talk about doing something, land banking those.
And even if that were the case, then that would mean by the store, you have 2 handicapped parking spaces. And how many spaces for presumably a consumer to go into that store? Do I see 4, 5,
Well,
6? What am I saying?
along the front of the store,
Yeah.
Yes.
Without the handicap.
without the handicap?
No, with it. No, those handicapped are staying.
So there's 9 spaces along the front of the store.
So that's 7 remaining. So you've made this store smaller so that, assuming that nothing changes, you can use less parking spaces by virtue of the fact that the store is made smaller. So now we're talking about banking for even less spaces, presumably. So, if you are selling lottery, which, Mr. Gill says that's his intention, I'm not sure that restricting parking spaces for people to get in and out of a store is a smart safety issue. So, I'm willing to hear the more testimony, but
Yeah, and
I
keep in
think
mi-
we're getting ahead of ourselves here on banking and employee
Well,
and,
yeah, and we are, because the traffic engineer testified, but just keep in mind that you have 12 spaces for cars that are getting gas.
well, I'm hoping they're not leaving their cars at the gas pump to run into the store like they do at every other store.
I do. Everyone
Because
does.
that is,
While you're filling up,
That
you go
couldn't be
in.
more rude, actually, because
Really?
I'm waiting behind them to get gas, and I can't move up because somebody's in the store.
I've never gotten back to my car before the filling
Well, I've been the
stopped.
one waiting, Mr. Alfieri, so
Right,
I
okay.
I tend to disagree
Well-
with that scenario.
All right. Well,
But let's
we
see what
we
the
did get ahead of
engineer said.
ourselves.
Okay. I just, yeah, before we actually take straw polls and, make some kind of a determination, I think we should at least hear the rest of the information.
And
Agreed.
just when we're coming up to it, and it's not for now, but so that you have advance notice, if you are not proposing 18 physical parking spaces, and you're banking, you're not meeting the ordinance
We need a
requirement
variance.
right now, so you would have to put the proofs on for
Understood.
that.
Understood.
And also, we would need to have a discussion, and because I've never been quite certain of this, whenever we have bank parking spaces, when they actually get,
Unbanked?
withdrawn from the bank.
Yeah, when are they
Yeah,
unbanked?
right,
Yeah.
right. So we need to discuss that when the time is appropriate.
Okay.
All right,
Did you finish all the changes?
There's just one or two more.
Okay.
Just part of the record, because we reduced the building size from 3,000 to 2,700, we revised the drawings that are attached to the plan. So the reduction in 3,000 square feet is reflected with updated building footprints and elevations. So that's just like acknowledgement. And then the last thing we did, we added a note to the plan that the LSRP of record will relocate the mounting rails as deemed necessary. So that's basically a summation of all the changes we did since we were here back in, I believe it was January.
Could you just circle back, and I like to, I was not paying attention, I apologize. The drainage system, right? You talked about that you have an infiltration system for runoff from the building, and I wanted to be clear about how you handled the site runoff.
Well, again, there was, with respect to the runoff for the property, with the development of the site, we have an infiltration system for the roof drainage for the canopy and the building. The theory being behind, because when the water hits the roof of the building, it doesn't pick up any pollutants, any of that nature. We have an infiltration system, so it ties into that infiltration system, then percolates into the ground.
And where is that infiltration system?
It's shown on drawing C 2.2, and it's closer to Wyckoff Mills Road, but it's between the canopy, it's under the parking area between the canopy and the building. And then for the rest of the site, we have inlets located within the site. The inlets are more or less on the easterly side. There's a drainage system in Wyckoff Mills Road, and so we'd be picking up the remaining of the surface water. Again, we added this, the water treatment unit, and then when it leaves the site and goes into the right-of-way stormwater drainage system in Wyckoff Mills Road, it connects to the existing system that's presently located in that area.
Do the basins have oil and water separators in them?
No, because we're putting in the water treatment unit
Oh,
now.
you are putting in water?
Yeah, that was voluntarily. It's not required, but based on discussions the last meeting, we voluntarily put that in.
I have one last follow-up question, and then obviously Mr. Shortino will answer any questions you have. Item 5 of the CME report, which is dated April 5th, there's items A through J, which relate to engineering. The others are traffic. But would you agree to address those comments in a revised plan, assuming this application were approved?
Yeah, A through
J.
J, correct. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all we have of the engineer.
Does the board have any questions of this witness?
Well, I think there were some environmental questions I think the board had, and we wanted to see if this witness was able to answer.
We're going to bring an LSRP back. so
Okay, okay.
We'll deal with that.
And Mr. Alfieri, what, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
April 5th engineering review letter. And I'm looking at page 3, where we talk about the variances. Are there anything here that the engineer is going to address, or is that going to be by your planner?
Planner will have to address those.
And I'm understanding from what you just asked your engineer, on page 4, is F and G also going to be addressed by your planner?
Yes.
Okay. As is H, I, J, K, and so on. I just want
We
to
could,
make sure
we,
that
the engineer could discuss the design waivers. The planner may supplement that testimony, but we could at least describe them and why they're being requested.
okay, so you want to start with
Sure,
that?
sure.
Item H?
We may as well start with that.
Should I start with F?
We can start with that.
I'll start with that, fine.
Okay, so F is section 188-231C. Business signs, you're only permitted to have 2 signs on a corner lot, and we're requesting 4. So we're requesting a design waiver for that. And again, it'll be supplemented by the planner, but again, when you have the gas station, there's a lot of information that needs to be shown, with the freestanding sign and what services are available. So the freestanding sign is required, and for the identification purposes. And the building also is necessary, just to clarify it, as a convenience store versus it could be a repair shop, things of that nature. And the canopy signs just add additional information to the motoring public of the type of brand that's available, with the logos and the colors of the site. So we're requesting a design favor for the number of signs. With respect to G, we did revise the freestanding sign to reduce the areas. The requirement is that it be set 20 feet from the right-of-way line, and we're proposing 10. We just feel 10 feet is more appropriate for this due to the high speeds of Route 9, and it just gives an advance warning of the site approaching, and so the vehicles have, the motoring public have an opportunity to slow down and maneuver safely into the site. With respect to...
Can I just stop you? Do you know of the other gas stations on Route 9, what the setbacks are?
No, I don't.
You might want to have your plan address that.
Okay. We'll research that and have that information.
All right, then go to H.
Okay. With respect to H, fences of the wall should not be higher than 4 feet, setback from the street line, and have 50 open space for light and air. We're showing the trash enclosure has a 6-foot wall, and we feel that's necessary because we want to safely screen the trash enclosure itself from the motoring public, so that's why we're requesting a 6-foot high block wall along that side of the trash enclosure. And then, I should have read the section number. With respect to I, section 188-106F, 1 parentheses, B parentheses, all aisles other than main driveways should be a minimum of 25 feet wide. Circulation aisle of 23 are proposed east and west of the pump islands. So what that means is, on the easterly side, what they're saying is the circulation aisle is approximately only 23 feet, where 25 is required. So we're requesting a design waiver for that, and also on this westerly side. And we feel what we have indicated, 23 feet is appropriate. One item about that one criteria, that 25 feet, it would be my testimony that 25 feet is probably based on an equal level of two-way traffic. But again, in this particular instance, I'm not saying that two-way traffic couldn't happen there, but it's highly unlikely that that would occur. Mostly all this traffic is going to be going from a south to north direction. So there's less maneuverability about our opposing vehicles traveling in that area. So we felt that 23 feet would be sufficient with respect to dimension we have indicated on the plan.
Was there any more? Yeah, next page.
Okay, section 188-106G, all areas between the parking area and buildings shall be landscaped. No landscaping is proposed. That's right in front of the store. That would be, in this type of facility, that's very, very difficult to do. You would need a lot more room to be able to do that. This is more or less the rule of thumb when convenience stores at gas stations are done. It's for the motoring public, and we feel that that is appropriate, that no landscaping is necessary. We do have significant landscaping all along the whole site, but in that particular area, we do not have that, so we are requesting a design waiver on that.
What's the width of the sidewalk in front of the store?
It's 7 feet at the smaller parts, in the narrow parts.
And then you have boulders that encroach into that.
Correct. The bollards probably encroach, it looks like it's about 2 feet maximum. So allowing for the overhang of the cars, so you probably have like a 5-foot sidewalk in that area.
Has someone going to testify as to the landscape, a more definition of the landscaping?
Well, the engineer should then. You mean that what we're providing on site? Sure. You want to go to the landscape
Well,
plan?
why don't we finish going through the
Okay.
engineers and then we'll circle back to that.
Fine.
Okay.
K?
So for item K, section 188-106, parentheses 1, all street loading should not be permitted in the front yard. A loading area is proposed along the Wyckoff Mills Road right-of-way. And again, that's where we've indicated that. We feel it was appropriate to put that there. This site is kind of, has 2 front yards, so there's almost really not any area we can put in there where it wouldn't be a front yard. The only place we could possibly do that would be along the property line, which extends perpendicular to Wyckoff Mills Road to Route 9, but there was no way to possibly get that in to provide that item, so we have to request a design waiver for that. And we did mention this is something that occurs, probably a maximum of 1 time a week, so we feel the design waiver is appropriate, and we're requesting that design waiver be granted for that. Okay. L, section 188-225G mentions that sidewalks should be provided on the private property to the public sidewalks. But there's no public sidewalks in this area along either Route 9 or Wyckoff Mills Road. So again, we're requesting a design waiver from that. We don't feel it's necessary to provide sidewalks along
Where is
Route.
the nearest sidewalk?
Villages has one.
I'm not sure where it is.
This was a whole debate that we had with an application that was just south of this. I don't remember if you were the attorney.
I wasn't, but I know the project.
The board has been struggling with the fact that there is pedestrian traffic along Route 9, and I'm under the opinion, I think, that this should warrant a sidewalk, whether it's on Route 9 or along the Wyckoff Mills Road frontage. All right? We know that we have sidewalk going in for the other application. I would like to facilitate any cross-traffic between this site and the villages at a minimum, and then do something if people do walk along Route 9.
And I do believe there is a bus
Yeah, there's a
turn,
park and
so
ride.
people maybe as they're waiting for the bus, they may want to walk down and get a paper or one of those 50 cups of coffee. And so I think a sidewalk is going to be warranted.
We can provide a sidewalk on either of the roads. We'll defer to the board or the board professionals.
Well, that's good. We just now have to figure out
Where?
where.
Do you want us to come back with a recommendation next meeting?
Yes, please.
All right.
And if you could speak with Mr. Herman or also Ms. Newman about where the sidewalk for that application was going to be. And I believe, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, we did something along Wyckoff Mills Road with a sidewalk? Or in a connection or something?
No, for the little plaza that's going in there,
Yeah.
we didn't do the sidewalk on
Wyckoff?
Whitehall, no.
Because that was beyond their property line.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there
I'll
was,
I'm sorry.
but there was talk about doing a walkway from the plaza into the villages, but I don't know what the status on that is.
Right.
There was a few conversations.
I'll call Laura and Jim Herman and find out if they have any.
Let's get it coordinated here.
In my opinion, you're gonna have more foot traffic along Wyckoff Mills Road than you're gonna have
Right.
along Route 9.
That's what I think.
Because of the retirement community. But
The only thing that Deputy Mayor does bring up is a good point, is that there might be some cross between the park and ride and this, but quite frankly, next to the park and ride is a Starbucks. Right?
And then the Exxon.
and the Exxon.
And then the Exxon, yeah. So,
Sidewalks is becoming something that we're looking at very strongly and seriously with the applications that are coming in. And we're just actually looking at an ordinance change for the very same thing, so.
We'll definitely provide the sidewalk. We'll just try and coordinate with Laura and Jim.
Are you going to have a crosswalk, marked crosswalk on Wyckoff Road, that people could know safely?
I could ask Jim Herman about that.
There should be a sign before that crosswalk, so motorists could see slow pedestrian traffic, because you may get a lot of traffic from the villages walking across. So,
the MUTCD requires it, yes. Yes.
Okay.
And your engineer's familiar with that.
That's the manual uniform traffic control. That's just signage. And then there was one other waiver, which is M.
Yeah, that deals with the facades over 58 feet and that need recess or projection 3 feet in depth. And the statement says it doesn't occur along the rear building. I'm going to defer that one to the architect when he testifies. That's for the architect to discuss, not myself.
That's fine.
And then the chairman asked about the landscape plan. That covered the design waivers. What sheet is that? And or does the exhibit show it?
The exhibit shows it, but, there's a specific landscape plan, just reference the drawing. So on drawing C 2.3, there's a specific landscape plan, and we've indicated the landscape shrubbery and trees in the green colors. The light green is all lawn areas. Those will all be lawn. And the darker colored renderings that you see here are shade trees, some smaller trees, and then along almost all the property lines, we have perimeter landscaping on all sides of the site on Route 9 and Wyckoff Mills Road. So considering what's available and the area available, I think the landscaping is good and appropriate for the site.
Sherry, have you had an opportunity to review this?
Yeah, I've reviewed it, and actually the last few comments I had on it, I emailed Brian my comments, just on minor, species changes and to switch it. The only thing they do still have to discuss is the 10-foot wide screening that they have to propose. So I don't think you technically still have a variance on that for the residential buffer on Wyckoff.
Yeah, that's the variance they're talking about, that's on that.
Right, so I think that would be what the planner was going to
I'll be honest
discuss.
with you guys, this is a hot button issue with the villages, is that they're gonna be looking at the active gas station, all right? We need to make sure that we get a good buffer on the Wyckoff Mills side.
Okay.
And I would ask that your engineer or whoever does your landscaping work with Sherry to come up with a nice buffer. And a year-round buffer also.
That's fine.
I just want to comment on that. There is a large screen right along Wyckoff Road, right in front of the villages. You put any type of screen up in front of the gas station that completely prohibits the line of sight when you're on Wyckoff Mills Road, plus my officer viewing into a gas station, I would not recommend anything higher than a regular shrub on that side of Wyckoff Road. There is a large amount of screening on the village's side. There's large pine trees right along the fence line there. Just my recommendation.
You'll keep that in mind.
Yeah, so the section of the site that would be on the south side, I mean, unless you're planting in the right-of-way, which so far, the only thing they're showing are the 3 street trees, there's really no room. I mean, you really can't have additional besides the little bit of shrubs they have over there. So that area would be pretty open. The only area that you really could add to would be the north side of it by where the store is. So, I mean, you could just add a few more trees, but there's really not much space for planting. It's really, they'd need a variance.
So you feel those couple of street trees along Wyckoff Mills Road?
Well, they're and those are going in the right-of-way. They're not on their property. They're really additional, evergreen trees. I don't know if they're going to be able to get away with putting them in the right-of-way, even if a line of sight wasn't an issue.
Our site has the landscape, the hedge, the lower landscaping at the property line.
Right, they're squeezing in shrubs in between the curb and their property line.
You feel it's adequate, then I'll vote based upon your recommendation.
And then on the CMA report, we covered all of the other engineering-related comments, I believe, unless Greg has others.
I think the only other issue I would have is any kind of soil borings or permeability test for the infiltration basin. I think that would be appropriate to provide, to do some testing. I'd be fine with it being done as a condition of an eventual approval, but that would be the only thing I think would be missing with the stormwater calculation.
Yeah, that's fine.
Have you seen this with the election thing?
What did he say he wanted?
He wanted soil borings in the vicinity
of the infiltration basin.
They
just want to make sure the soil percolates, so it's going to go into the ground. Actually, I think we agreed to that already.
I think we'll talk more about that.
It's this one. 5A. Yeah, that's what I thought, yeah. So
J and K will be addressed by your planner?
Well, yes, it will be, but I doesn't really require comment. We agree that, that the section cited by the engineer is the section that applies to us in the ordinance. But yes, she will cover it. I think K we've covered basically, but she'll follow up with it. We discussed how the garbage and refuse and waste and everything, we had the LSRP discuss the contamination. We have the lighting we've covered, so we probably covered most of K, but she can clean that up if we missed anything.
Well, the one thing that I haven't heard addressed is, I know you have a trash enclosure. Does that trash enclosure include both disposable refuse and also a separate bin for the recycling?
Yes.
Yes, then we've addressed most of the things in K.
And actually, Mr. Chair, on that item I, there's a legal portion of this that may not require any testimony as to whether the subsequent adoption of 188-98.4 superseded the 188-87, because if it did and they comply, then they wouldn't have to provide any testimony at all.
Okay, but somebody's got to put that on the record.
Right, but I think between now and next hearing, that's something that Mr. Alfieri can just address, from a legal perspective, whether relief is required or not.
Right. Well, we believe we comply, so, but I'll be more specific.
Yeah.
And you agree to all the items on 5A through
J.
M inclusive?
A through J,
J.
yes, because the others are traffic, so we're waiting.
Very good. Okay. Is Mr. Trentino's testimony complete?
Yes, the only thing that he's going to have to come back with, so I don't know if you want to do questions tonight or when he comes back, but we're going to come back with something relating to sidewalks after we speak to the engineer, township and board engineer, and then we'll have a revised plan for you for that.
I like to do questions just in case there's an issue that's brought up.
That's fine.
All right. Does the board have any questions of Mr. Trentino? Seeing none, I will open up the...
Mr. Chair, just before you do that, I have just a question as to whether something's been testified to completely or there's going to be more testimony. With regard to the design waiver relief for the sign that is 10 feet rather than 20 feet, the setback, the testimony tonight was there's a safety reason associated with that. Is that something that Mr. Ray is going to speak to?
Yes, and we're also going to
okay.
look to see if other stations on 9 have similar setbacks.
I'd ask also, if this applicant operates about 70 or so, many of them may be on highways, whether, the 10-foot setback is something he regularly uses at his other locations, and whether there's any, personal experience that can be offered.
Okay.
And beyond the, the safety issue, and this may be for the planner, just some testimony regarding the site and whether there's just an impracticability of placing it at the required setback based upon, the size and shape of the property. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Now, can I open it to the public?
Yep.
Okay. Is there anyone who would like to come up and ask questions of the engineer?
You don't know anything about the environmental stuff, so your answer is, I don't know. Because the more you say to her, the worse it gets. Is she getting up? Is she getting up? Straight to work.
testify on all the environmental issues. So all your questions related to the environmental issues, I would believe would be addressed by the LSRP.
Can I ask one question about the drainage?
You can ask all the questions
Okay.
you want. I was just telling you.
I'll be glad. Thank you very much.
Consolidate it.
With reference to drainage, are you aware that we have city water? Where are you going to drain to?
The surface runoff produced by the site, as I mentioned, we're tying into the existing drainage system that's located in Wyckoff Mills Road.
Okay, is that city water?
I'm assuming that's the municipal stormwater sewage system.
Okay, because are you aware that on the side of your parking lot going down, one side of the gas station parking lot, there's a storm drain down there? Right there, there's a storm drain, right in front of the driveway.
Yes, I'm aware of that.
Is that where you're gonna drain into?
We're going to tie into that inlet, that's correct.
Okay, is there any drainage going to go or drain toward the Manasquan River?
I do not know where that drainage goes once it enters that inlet.
Inlet meaning what?
The inlet that you just referenced, which is located on the easterly side, the existing inlet that's located on the easterly side of the property along Wyckoff Mills Road.
The storm drain, are you aware that the storm drain is not the Manasquan River? The Manasquan River and the Banner Meadow Brook are separate. That's why I'd like to just make where are you going?
That's what I testified. I do not know where that storm drainage structure and piping leads to.
Okay, so my question is, will you at the next meeting and your LSRP tell us exactly where you are going to have your drainage and into the storm water, city water, which is going through pipes and whatever under the streets, or are you going to have your drainage going into whatever system heading into the Manasquan River, which is our drinking water? That's our drinking water. We can't have anything in there.
The LSRP is definitely not going to testify to that.
Well, I think to answer the question, it's more a function of, does your stormwater management plan comply with all relevant requirements?
Right.
I believe it does.
Well,
Is-
Mr. Chair, I think what I'm hearing from Ms. Dixon is, can you look up the city stormwater system and to see where that inlet that you're, could be tying into, where does the piping from that inlet lead to?
We can make an attempt to try to find that out if there's maps available, things of that nature. But if it's a unknown type system, we won't be able to give you an answer.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Can we make the
Sure,
effort to
yes,
research
yes,
that?
we can. If the information is readily available and we can trace it, we'll do the best we can to find out where it would go to.
Is it possible to go to the DEP also to find out that information if they have it?
They could just,
Department of Sewers?
they could just locate it on a USGS quad map. It's very simple. Take
All
5
right.
minutes to do it.
Just, thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's just very important, so what's gonna drain, where is it gonna drain to, and will it impact the health, welfare, and safety and quality of our water that we drink?
When I schedule the meeting.
That's,
They will come
Okay.
back with that answer.
being that the
at next
Manasquan
meeting.
River is right at the tip of that station, Manasquan, and it goes under Route 9 into Moore's Landing.
Yes, I'm well
So-
familiar with it.
So, yeah, we need to know exactly where all of this water is going.
The applicant will come back
All right,
with that
thank you,
answer.
that's one of my questions, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone else like to ask questions of this witness? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close this portion of the public hearing of this witness. It is 5 after 10. Right. When can we schedule them?
The next couple agendas are pretty full. June 6th has got 4 applications, including Monmouth Commerce, June 20th. Mr. Effa, you're going to be in with that large K-Hub
K-Hub's on.
application, and there's also the master plan hearing, and as well as Boulder Ridge that night. But right now, we do not have anything scheduled for July 18th. So we could schedule them for July 18th. If you want, you can make sure they're first, but, you know, other things may happen. But at this moment, nothing is on July 18th.
That worked for us.
That works for you.
Okay.
We need an extension of time as well.
Letter or on the record?
You could do it on the record.
The applicant will grant the board an extension until the July 31st in which to act on the application, and we request that an announcement be made that no further notice be required.
Okay, so the application of Gill Petroleum Incorporated, case number SP-1006, be carried to the board's July 18th, 2019 meeting, beginning at 7 o'clock p.m. here at Town Hall in the main meeting room. There will be no further notice to property owners.
Last, whoever.
God bless you, whoever did sneeze. And thank you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Clean up your stuff. You gotta leave. You gotta take that off.
Master
Leave it
plan
tonight.
status report.
Yeah, take that.
Karen House is not here. We had a presentation by Peter about the public ordinance, which I believe is going to be the subject of the June master plan. The June 28th meeting. What's the meeting at the master plan?
June 20th?
June 20th meeting. Okay.
So there's none in May?
I'm sorry?
There's none in May?
Yeah, there is a master plan meeting.
Subcommittee
in May.
meeting. Right.
We're still trying to figure out what we will be looking
I believe it's next Thursday.
Right.
at. Yes,
Okay.
yes. So, I will get together with Ryan and let you know. Tentatively, it's still on, right? But
You need to let me know before Tuesday. I'm out of the office the rest of the week. Or by Tuesday.
You're in Tuesday?
Yes.
Okay, no problem. Any reason to go into executive session?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
One question, Mr. Chairman.
What, I'm sorry?
With Monmouth Commerce Center coming up, do we want to try to schedule a site plan visit for that? Is that, I don't know if that's something we need to do at this point yet or not.
I thought actually we had.
Well, any board member, you know, can go visit the site. Just make sure you're less than 3 when you do it, and you're not there to discuss anything with anyone, you're just there to take a look. Because I think, part of the application, they sign a consent form to that, correct?
They signed a
Yeah.
consent form to allow us to access the property.
Right, yeah, so just make sure, as I said, 3, or less than 3, and don't talk to anyone when you're there.
Yeah, who was on the site?
I believe it's myself, Chief, and Mr. Dorado, maybe, or?
I'm on it.
Are you
I
on
think
it?
it's Mr. Everett.
Well, no, there's only 3 of us. Is it myself, Chief, and Nick?
The site review is Mr. Seaman, Chief Kudrick, and Mr. Dorado.
Oh, really? I thought I was on it. I thought I was on it.
Maybe last year you were on it.
Maybe, I don't.
Okay, so.
You're on the master plan this year, right?
Oh, that's right,
Who
yeah.
you want to go with? I would go with that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. There you go. Well, Chief might say, you know what, I got a gun, you better not take me. I got a gun and handcuffs.
Okay, motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We got it.